Board members, I will read the opening statement tonight, and then we'll move to reorganization since this is the reorganization meeting of the board. This is a regular meeting of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment being held electronically via Zoom on January 14, 2026 at 7:30 p.m. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given by prominently posting the sunshine notice of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment. Such notice has been placed on the official bulletin board at the Princeton Municipal Complex and by transmitting a copy of the notice to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, the Trentonian, and by filing a copy with the Clerk of Princeton on January 9, 2026, and has been posted to the municipal website. Pursuant to Executive Order 107, due to the state of emergency in New Jersey regarding COVID-19, notice that during the declared state of emergency, all regular and special meetings of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment will be held electronically via Zoom, was transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, and the Times, and was filed with the Clerk of Princeton on the 24th day of April, 2020. Such notices have been placed on the official bulletin board at the Princeton Municipal Complex and on the Princeton website and are to be maintained throughout the year, and by transmitting a copy of same to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, Trentonian, Comcast Media, and by filing a copy thereof with the Clerk of Princeton. Notices have also been placed on all window doors of the municipal complex. Claudia, if we could have the roll call.
Ms. Chen?
Here.
Ms. Coulson?
Here.
Mr. Floyd?
Here.
Mr. Shriver?
Here.
Mr. Tenenbaum?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Mr. Dobkin?
Here.
Mr. Stein? Ms. Donna? Thank you.
Now I would like to open the floor for nominations for chair of the board for 2026.
I would like to nominate Steve Cohen. I think he's continued to do a really steady, thoughtful job. And so I'd like to place his name in nomination.
And do we have a second?
Second.
And do we have a nomination, motion to close nominations?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, and if we could have a roll call vote, Claudia?
Ms. Chen?
Yes.
Ms. Coulson?
Yes.
Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Shriver?
Yes.
Mr. Tenenbaum?
Yes.
Mr. Dobkin?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen? Can he vote himself?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mr. Chair, I return control of the meeting to you.
Well, thank you, board members. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
All right.
So, we need a nomination for vice chairman.
I'll nominate Stephen Shriver.
Okay,
Do we second?
I'll second it.
And then, Claudia, can we take a roll call vote?
Ms. Chen?
Yes.
Ms. Coulson?
Yes.
Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Tenenbaum?
Yes.
Mr. Dobkin?
Yes.
Mr. Shriver?
Yes,
Chairman Cohen?
Yes.
Thank you.
I too thank you for the vote of confidence.
You're welcome. We have to appoint an attorney, the appointment of an attorney. How do we do that, Karen? Do we nominate you?
Yes, so what we would need is a motion, if you would like to appoint me, and a second. And I think then that we could also do one roll call vote to also cover the appointment of the secretary. So we have a motion and a second to appoint me, and then a motion and a second to appoint Claudia. Then we could combine those in one roll call vote.
Okay.
So
Okay, we
moved.
have-
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And then a nomination for Claudia as secretary.
I move.
I second.
Alrighty. And then Claudia, if you could do roll call vote. Thank you, board members.
Ms. Chen,
Yes.
Ms. Coulson,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Shriver,
Yes.
Mr. Tenenbaum,
Yes.
Mr. Dobkin,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. We begin 2026. We have two applications this evening. Our first application, which is case number Z 25-703. Well, first, actually, Karen is noticing an order on this
It
application?
is. It is in order and the board has jurisdiction tonight.
Okay. All right. So again, case Z 25-703, 8 Valley Road, block 7001, lot 36. This is for a time extension. Mr. Bridger, can you please give us your analysis?
Mr. Bridger, let me just first swear you in for the evening. Do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. The applicant is James Mugliver. He's the owner of 8 Valley Road. He was granted a temporary D1 use variance to permit 2 principal dwellings on a lot when only one is permitted. The application involved the construction of an accessory dwelling unit, a new principal residence, and the temporary retention of the existing principal dwelling. The temporary D1 variance was applied for to allow the applicant to reside in the existing principal dwelling while the new principal dwelling was being constructed. The resolution had a condition that required the existing principal dwelling to be demolished within 18 months of the date of the publication, which was July 9th, 2024, or within 90 days of the issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy for the new principal resident, whichever occurred first. The resolution also required the posting of a bond to guarantee the demolition of the existing principal dwelling, and the applicant has posted the bond. The new principal dwelling has been framed to the roof, started to have siding put on it. The zoning permit for the project is still valid and has not exceeded any time limits. The D1 variance to allow 2 principal dwellings on the lot will expire on January 9th. It already has expired, 2026. The applicant is still residing in the existing principal dwelling and is requesting a time extension regarding the time limitation of the D1 variance through August 1st, 2026. 5 affirmative votes are required. The extension of the D1 variance is subject to the following requirement. No variance or other relief may be granted under the terms of this section unless such variance or other relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purposes of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. The following items should be considered when reviewing the use variance. The burden of proof is on the applicant to demonstrate special reasons for granting the variance as well as the negative criteria. The applicant should discuss any special reasons where the proposed use inherently serves the public good, such as school, public housing, hospital, or where the owner would suffer undue hardship if required to use the property in compliance with the permitted uses in the zone, and where the use would serve the general welfare because the proposed site is particularly suited to the proposed use. That's just a brief synopsis of the request. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I just have one. On the agenda, it says that the extension, the MLUL extension is till April 18th of 2026. So
No, that's
That is the 120 days.
the 120 days.
Incomplete.
Thank you, Claudia. Yep. That is
okay,
correct.
we have to act on this within
Yeah.
120 days. Okay, no problem. Thank you. I don't have any questions. Board members, any questions? Okay,
believe
Is
Mr.
the applicant here or the
He
applicant's
is.
I
attorney?
believe he
we-
is.
We can't see him. But
Can everyone hear me?
we can hear you, but there you
And
go.
can
Mr.
everyone see me?
Mogliver. Okay, yes, we can. Mr.
Okay.
Mogliver, we just need to swear you in. Do you
Okay.
swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
Am I good to start?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
you are.
Okay. So, I have something short written. I want to read off of it because I don't want to miss anything, and this is very important to me. Some of it is basically what Derek just said, but I'll reread it just in case. But for those of you who may not know me, my name is James Mogliver, and I'm the owner of and live at 8 Valley Road. Back in July of 2024, we were given approval to build a new house and ADU on our lot. Since we were planning on building the main house first on the empty half of the lot, then later build the ADU where our current house is, we were granted a D variance that would allow us to live on the lot during construction. This variance came with the condition that we demolish our current house within 18 months of the date of publication or within 90 days of the issuance of a temporary certificate of approval, whichever comes first. I'm here to request a time extension of this variance that would set the deadline for us to demolish our current house to August 1st, 2026. We began construction in early November, and so far I've finished the foundation, framing, sheathing, and roof. Utilities are being installed, and windows will be put up within the next 2 weeks. At our current pace, we expect to finish construction by the summer. Since construction began in November, we have only gotten use out of the variance, so to speak, for 2 months. The lot has spent the majority of the time frame allowed by the D variance as a single-family home as it has been for decades. If we're granted the approval to demolish our current house by August 1st, it will have only spent a maximum of 8 months on the same lot as a construction site. If we prematurely demolish our home before the new house is ready, we feel that the financial and logistical consequences would effectively stop our ability to continue construction. Because we have a mortgage that uses our current house as collateral, premature demolition risks our mortgage being pulled by the bank. Since we've already spent a large portion of our construction budget, we do not have the funds to pay off our current mortgage in one large chunk. Even if we did have enough to pay off the mortgage, we would then not have enough to continue paying our contractors and would have to cancel scheduled jobs and material deliveries. With a demolished house and an unfinished construction site, premature demolition would effectively turn what is meant to be a 2-family lot into a 0-family lot. If we are granted a time extension of the variance, we can keep construction moving smoothly and eventually refinance using the new house as collateral. Before I finish, I want to be clear on 2 things. 1, as of today, January 14th, our lot consists of a house and a construction site, not 2 principal dwellings. There has never been and there never will be 2 families living in the 2 existing structures at the same time. 2, as Derek mentioned, we have submitted a check to the township for the full cost of demolition, and this check is currently being held in escrow as a performance guarantee. Demolition will happen. We are just requesting an extension of time. We have been and will continue to follow the spirit of the law, and I hope you, the board, will see it the same way. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay. Board members, any questions? Okay, Karen,
Yes.
do we have to open this up to the public?
Yeah, I think you do.
Okay. Before we do that, do you want to say anything else before we open it for public comment?
Are you asking me?
Yes, please.
Nothing that I haven't already said. I'm happy if people do have something to say. I'm happy to answer those concerns.
Okay. All right. Claudia, is there anybody in the audience who's indicated they'd like to speak on behalf of this application?
There are no hands.
Okay. We'll give it a second here. Okay, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. Again, you have the opportunity to speak before we vote.
Once again, if anyone on the board has any concerns, any questions, I'm happy to answer those concerns and questions. But otherwise, I feel as though our situation's pretty cut and dry.
Yes. Okay, now we'll go into executive session. Board members, any questions, comments, or motions? Well, I think this is a very reasonable request. I think it's clear from the owner that there'll only be one principal resident. residents on the property at any one time. It's under construction and that's moving along, and I really see no reason not to grant this time extension.
Thank you.
My only question would be, is August 1st a realistic date?
So my application was basically a letter, and originally I asked for October 30th or maybe November 1st to kind of tie it as 1 year from the start of construction. I felt as though that might be too much to ask from the board. So while I'd love to have more time, I didn't want to sound, I guess, greedy, for lack of a better term, but a longer extension would, of course, benefit us.
I have one question. So the town is holding, I think, approximately 17,000 to accomplish demolition if it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So the assumption would be then, we just confirm right now you want an extension to demolish your current home by August. Let's just see, what is the date you're looking for? August, is it 16th?
August 1st, though.
August 1st.
I don't know if it's allowed. If I am allowed to have slightly more time, I would obviously ask for that. But if it's not allowed, I understand.
Well, I guess the issue for the board is, the idea is that by August 1st, if it's not demolished,
Then you demolish the house.
then the town has to take the funds and demolish it.
Yeah.
themselves.
And
Okay.
and you guys don't have a bond. If I'm understanding the finances of it correctly, you don't have a bond as a performance guarantee, but the full amount. So there's no chasing after me in case you need to pay for demolition. You have the funds for demolition.
Are you comfortable with the 8 months to get this done, or 7 basically?
Like I said, I originally asked for I think it was November 1st or October 30th. I didn't know if that sounded like too much to ask, so I brought it down. If I am allowed to ask for November 1st, that gives a full year. Basically, the idea is, if we can't build one house in a year, that's more on us than on anything else. That gives us time for potential delays, which can happen. Gives us time to refinance. The idea is to build a house, refinance using the new house as collateral for the mortgage, and then that would be able, as we would refinance, we would pay off the mortgage after demolition, the existing mortgage. So more time would give us more cushion. So if that is a possibility, I would of course ask for that.
Karen, is that possible, since this extension was they asked for extension until August 1st? It was advertised like that. Can we give additional time?
Well, I'm more concerned with the fact that, and it's really more a situation, yes, the board has allowed this in other cases, but keep in mind, I believe this application came in. Okay, so it was approved in June 2024, and now we are 2026. So I know Mr. Mogiliever is saying if they can't build a home in a year, but actually there's been a lot more time than that.
If I could, when I say build, I mean specifically from the day that we put a shovel in the ground. So obviously the permitting process took us more time than we expected. But when I say build, I specifically mean physically build.
Well,
Though I understand what you were saying.
no, that, and I understand what the argument you're making. It's just that for the board, I think you would be wise to keep in mind that in other situations, these same issues can arise. So,
are you worried that we would request another
Yes.
request another extension?
Yes.
I don't know if it's allowed. It could be in the writing. If this is approved, it could be in the writing that there are no more extensions, and I'm happy to agree to that if that is allowed.
Michael, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I basically have a question because you settled on proposed August 1st,
Yeah.
and I understand. Well, for me, one of my questions would be, I assume your contractor gave you a date before August 1st that he'll be finished on the first.
So, sorry, go ahead.
What was that date?
We are acting as GCs because it is a prime personal home for personal use. We did not have someone to tell us a date. So when I came up with the date of August 1st, I basically negotiated by myself in my head, got to that date, and settled on it.
First time homeowner, according to your
First time homeowner, first time home builder, yeah.
and home builder and your own GC.
That is correct. Yeah.
Well, if your own GC, then you know August 1st is a good date then. I really have no problem giving a few more months, but it's now it's even more up to you to deliver because you're a GC.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I understand the concern of getting to that proposed date and worrying about me coming in again, another application, another request for extension. And I obviously don't want that either. The goal is not to have this. I mean, I'm living on the construction site. I don't want to live on a construction site for a very long time. So
Yeah.
the goal is not to speed through it by any means, but to be efficient with our timing, more efficient than we were with the permitting process.
Well,
I have no more questions. I did hear our attorneys a little apprehension though.
what date would you be comfortable with?
If the board is comfortable with it, I'd go back to my original request, which is call it October 30th, because that's the day that we got construction permits. If the board is comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, so
And-
basically an
and-
extra 3 months.
Yeah, the idea is if it is allowed to add those 3 months now, then we don't have to have this conversation again in July or so. We can have that conversation now. If the board is okay with it, I'm also very okay with it.
But Mr.
And wouldn't-
Moguliever, nothing prevents you from coming in and asking for another extension. So
It-
to say that then you won't do it again.
Yeah,
You've told us that you have financial and logistic reasons why
yeah.
you are coming in and asking for this. Okay, so no one can predict what's going to happen, but it seems to me that from the date that you got this approval to now, under ordinary circumstances, that would be sufficient time to build a new home. So you've
Yeah.
explained you're having other problems. So I guess my advice to the board would be, it was noticed, he asked for August 1st. If this applicant needs more time and they think they can demonstrate good cause to the board, then, they'd be able to come in again.
Yeah.
And explain why during this entire time frame they could not build a new home.
Let me ask one more question. Is your architect doing construction supervision, or are you doing that without her having?
No, she's very involved. I mean, we talk not on a daily, but at least on a weekly basis. She's very involved in what's going on. She knows what the next steps are. She's been to the site multiple times. She's in the know of what's going on.
My maybe I can narrow my question.
Okay.
Is your architect have a contract for construction supervision? Yes or no?
I don't know. I would lean towards no,
you
but
would
I do not
You'd
know.
be party to the contract.
I understand that, but I don't
Okay.
have a solid answer for you.
Then yeah.
I wish I did, but I do not.
I appreciate that. With you being the GC, with you not
Yeah.
knowing what the architect is, I can only support the August 1st.
Okay, that's fair.
I would suggest you get contracted with your architect
Yeah.
to help you officially, and they can probably help you dealing with any other municipal and state codes,
Yeah.
steps, but I'm not feeling comfortable with you as a first time construction.
I understand that. I get the apprehension.
Yeah.
I move we approve this for August 1st.
I second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all right. Claudia, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Chen,
Yes.
Ms. Coulson? Ms. Coulson,
You're muted, Eve.
Right. Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Shriver,
Yes.
Mr. Tenenbaum,
Yes.
Mr. Dobkin,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for coming before us. Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate everyone's time. I've heard your concerns. I will make sure we don't speak again in 6 or 7 or so months. Thank you, everyone, for the approval. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, our next application is 344 Nassau Street. Block 320, or excuse me, case number Z25-651, block 32.02, lot 214 in the AHO2 zone. Karen, are all the notices in order?
Yes, the noticing is in order. The board has jurisdiction tonight.
Okay. Claudia is the applicant on site or in the audience, as well as his or her witnesses.
Mr. Tar, who do you need over from the other side?
Daniel Barsky,
Yeah, he's moved over.
Marina Rabina, Georges Jacquemart, and Cray Rayenkamp. There we are. We've got them all.
Okay, good. Mr. Bridger, can you give us the benefit of your memo, please?
Yes, sir. A little change up here. I'm gonna hand off to Nathan Foote, the Assistant Director of Planning, because he's much better at that than I am. And what I'd like to do is once he's done with his overview, I'll address the variances. I also read the executive statement from the Princeton Environmental Commission into the record. And we also have David Shore tonight. He's the Vice Chair, I believe, of the Historic Preservation Commission, and he will read the Historic Preservation Commission's resolution or chairman's report from the hearing that they had reviewing this application. So, I see
Mr.
a hand.
Bridger, is Mr. Onasike, is he going to present? Now?
Yeah, he can, obviously, after Mr. Shore.
Yeah, he's here to answer questions, I think.
Yep,
Okay.
usually there.
As am I.
Well, Mr. Foote, we'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Bridger. And good evening, members of the board, members of the public, and members of the applicant's team. As Derek mentioned, my name is Nathan Foote. I'm the Assistant Planning Director for the municipality of Princeton. And what I'd like to do to start off with is to share my screen. And let me just get that taken care of. Share. Oop. There we go. Is that up?
Yep.
Okay. And this will be, Karen, this would be exhibit ZB1, or how do you want to?
Yeah, that's
Mark it.
fine. That's
Mark-
fine,
okay.
ZB1.
Okay. So this, to give a description, this is an overhead image of the subject property and the surrounding area from the NJ Parcel Explorer website created by Rowan University. As I mentioned, this will be Exhibit ZB1. So the subject property is identified as Block 32.01, Lot 214, highlighted in blue in the middle of the screen. A two-story building currently occupied with office uses is located on the site, has an address of 344 Nassau, and as that address indicates, it is fronting along Nassau Street. It has a 16-space parking lot in the rear, which is accessed from North Harrison Street. Portions of that 344 Nassau building do date back to the 18th and 19th centuries. The property is part of the Jugtown Historic District, which I'll come back to in just a moment. I think as Mr. Bridger already alluded to, there is a representative from the, or multiple representatives from the HPC here to present their report. As mentioned, automobiles access the site from North Harrison Street at this location where my cursor is pointing. The 16 spaces in the lot are reserved and marked with numbers, except for 2 that are marked visitors only. There are no ADA accessible spaces. You can't really see them, but there are 2 dumpsters located in the northeast corner of the lot. And employees, this is an important point, employees of the adjacent Weichert, I might be butchering that name, so I apologize. But the Weichert Realtors access their 5-car parking lot, which is located just about here where my cursor is, through the site. So they pull in through North Harrison and then drive all the way through to that little parking area at the east side. There's currently a no left turn sign out of that lot. So really, technically speaking, anybody leaving that parking area should be turning right to the north onto North Harrison. Sidewalks are found along the site on both Nassau Street and North Harrison Street. 2 walkways extend through a green lawn from the Nassau Street sidewalk to the front, 2 front building entrances fronting along Nassau Street. There are plantings and 2 mature trees within this lawn. There are also additional plantings located along the exterior perimeters of the lot, including within a small buffer with the medical office to the north. So this site is a medical office, and there is a small planting strip between the parking area and that medical office. Also, there's a stone wall that can be found in front of a portion of a chain link fence in that same area on the north side of the site. There are mostly commercial uses surrounding the properties. So the Whole Earth Center, we have a restaurant here, as I mentioned, the medical office, additional commercial uses to the south and to the southeast and, southwest and west, and along North Harrison Street, and then further out, pretty much in all directions, although a little bit further out to the east, we do have residential uses as well. One thing that I will note importantly is that these locations here at the Whole Earth Center, as well as multiple of the surrounding properties, including that medical office that I just mentioned, are identified as an affordable housing site in the Municipality of Princeton's 4th round housing element and fair share plan. So the ordinance is still being written and is still in that process, but the idea is that eventually there'll be an ordinance adopted by the council to allow for this site, the Whole Earth Center site, along with the surrounding areas, the surrounding properties. And I can list those into the record. Block 32.01, lots 173, 213, 221, and 222 will eventually become an affordable housing site. And that'll take place sometime. The ordinance will be adopted by March 31st, and then sometime in the next 10 years, that should be developed into an affordable housing site. The subject parcel is located in the neighborhood business district of the former borough, but it's also located in the affordable housing overlay 2 zone. The proposed development does utilize the AH02 standards, but requires 2 D1 use variances that Mr. Bridger will address in a few minutes once I'm done with my presentation. Per section B 17A-409 of the municipal code, this is the one that deals with the affordable housing overlays. Quote, the affordable housing overlay zones are to provide a realistic opportunity for the construction of affordable housing pursuant to the New Jersey Fair Housing Act, and thereby comply with the municipality's constitutional obligation to provide such housing for low and moderate income households. More specifically, the AHO1 and AHO2 zones are established to incentivize redevelopment consisting of multifamily residential uses with an affordable housing set aside along with ground level retail, service, commercial, and office uses to reinforce the existing development pattern of the corridor defined primarily by Nassau Street. And to provide a little bit more background on the affordable housing obligations, Princeton's fourth round housing plan element and fair share plan was adopted by the planning board on June 25th, 2025, and endorsed by the council on June 26, 2025, following public hearings at each body. The plan reflects Princeton's affordable housing obligation for the fourth round. There is more detail in the joint memo prepared by Mr. Justin Lesko and myself, dated January 9th, 2026. But the important number is the prospective need generally requiring new construction, and that number would be 364 units. While the Affordable Housing Overlay 2 was adopted in 2020, actually, let me move forward with that. The important point is that the obligation for the fourth round is 364 units, and really, what the point of that is just that the municipality has an obligation to provide zoning for affordable housing to meet the number produced by the state. There's more detail, there's more background that goes into that, but I don't want to belabor the point. Really, that's the main takeaway from that. Now, also, in meeting its affordable housing obligations, Princeton affordable housing projects must comply with what's called the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls, or UHAC. Per UHAC, a certain percentage of affordable housing units must be 2-bedroom units, and a certain percentage of units must be 3-bedroom units. Additionally, a certain percentage of units must be restricted to each of the following income groups: very low income, and moderate income. The municipality must keep track of the number of affordable units that have been approved and constructed, how many bedrooms are in each unit, and which income group they are restricted to. And then in addition to that, individual projects are required to also meet those UHAC requirements. So as I noted before, the subject property is located in the Jugtown Historic District. The applicant did appear before the Historic Preservation Commission on December 1st, 2025. A written memorandum has been provided, and representatives, as I mentioned, of the HPC are here to provide a verbal report to the board and answer any questions that may arise based on their report. This project does have a little bit of a history. It was a planning board concept review and then a full major site plan application to the planning board. However, and it was heard by the HPC at that time. However, that application was withdrawn and redesigned, and the project redesigned with the application now being made to the zoning board due to the variances that are required. I'll let the applicant and the professionals detail the proposed project, and as I mentioned, Mr. Bridger will address the variances, including the use and or D variances that are required for this project. But to summarize, the applicant is proposing to construct a new 3-story residential building with a total of 10 units, and that's going to be located to the rear of the existing 2-story structure that is currently used for office uses. So that front building along Nassau will be used just for offices, and that rear building is going to be built exclusively for at least as we are aware, 10 residential units. A parking area of 7 spaces with 1 proposed ADA accessible space with EV charging and 1 EV charging space is also going to be provided. I believe the idea is that they're going to repave the existing rear section of that parking area and redo it to provide that EV and restripe to provide the EV charging and the ADA space. But I'll let the applicant confirm that in detail. 4 bicycle parking spaces are shown at the eastern end of a walkway between the existing and new buildings, with the site plan indicating an additional 8 long-term covered bicycle parking spaces at the southern entrance to the new building and 3 bikes in an interior storage area just inside the entrance. The board's consulting traffic engineer, as has already been mentioned, Mr. Victor Anasike is here and has provided a report regarding traffic and parking. Some landscaping is also provided with the proposal. The board's consulting landscape architect, Mr. Dan Dobromilski, I didn't see him before. I think the idea was that he was going to be a little bit late, but he should be here in a bit to provide to really answer any questions that might come up. But he did provide a report that was available for both the applicant and the board's review. So getting now to the more of the planning side, I do want to highlight benefits and some concerns that we've raised. First, as far as the benefits, which again are detailed in our January 9th, 2026 report. The benefits include the provision of 2 affordable units to the municipality's affordable housing obligations. Many problematic trees would or should be removed as detailed by the municipal landscape architect, and the additional plantings that are proposed have the potential benefits for local wildlife. The creation of market rate rental units where surface parking exists, which is a benefit for the quantity of units in Princeton, as well as an aesthetic improvement for a gateway into Princeton. So instead of having a parking lot sitting there, we have a newly constructed building, a modern building that still at the same time matches the historic vernacular of the area, which I'll let the HPC representatives get into. And the residential units that are proposed will allow for a less car-dependent lifestyle to their tenants without passing on to them the costs of parking requirements. As I noted, there are several concerns with the project. These are provided in greater detail in the January 9th memo. One of our major comments was in regards to the provision of a 3-bedroom unit as an affordable unit. That's again based on UHAC requirements. Based on communication from the applicant's attorney, it's our understanding that 1 2-bedroom and 1 3-bedroom are now being proposed, but I'll let the applicants get into that. The applicant and their professionals get into that if that is in fact what is now being proposed. In regards to parking, our main concern is the management of what is being proposed. With 7 spaces, 1 of which is an ADA space and 1 is an EV charging space. The applicant really, we think, should provide additional information on how parking is going to be allocated between the different uses and also within the residential uses, especially making sure that the affordable units are provided, parking spaces if they are needed. Just really the allocation of those spaces amongst the residential tenants. How parking for the office uses will be provided. One thing that I've noted from from testimony provided to the HPC from the applicant is that the office uses are going to be consolidated. What we would ask is just further clarification on how that affects the parking arrangement, how that is going to affect the parking need for those tenants. So specifics of employees and that sort of thing. Additionally, how traffic to the neighboring Wykert property will be allowed for and controlled. So again, as the current proposal stands, traffic is still going to be that parking area is going to still be there on the neighboring property. And so is there going to be some kind of arrangement, some kind of deed restriction to provide for that access to that parking area for that neighboring property, what kind of arrangement is going to be, how are those spaces going to be controlled. Those are things that from a planning side, we want to make sure are addressed. We've also requested additional information on the clearance side of the parking area, turning diagrams, and trash removal procedures. We would also ask the board to discuss the number of bicycle parking spaces. The number does meet that required by the Princeton ordinance, but given the dependence of this project on non-motorized personal, that is pedestrian and bicycle modes of transportation, as well as public transportation, we want to know if there's a possibility of additional bike parking that could be provided. We are also concerned about the privacy of the ground floor units, especially the one along North Harrison Street. There's no solar proposed on the roof. Applicant should discuss why this is the case, and should also discuss other green features of the construction. And there are other comments from our planning memo. However, I'm going to defer those comments and questions to after the applicant's presentation. I'll now turn it back over to either the chair or to Mr. Bridger. Thank you.
Mr. Foote, since you're going to continue to reference your January 9th, 2026 memo, why don't we make that an exhibit as well? We'll call it Exhibit ZB2.
Okay.
Okay.
And that was provided to the board, so I don't know if that changes the
No,
need.
that's okay.
Okay.
We'll still make
Still
it
mark it
easy.
ZB2. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Bridger, do you want to continue with this opening?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As Nathan mentioned, the property requires, or the project requires, 2 use variants pursuant to NJSA 40:55-70 D1. The AH02 Affordable Housing Overlay Zone, Section B17A 418A, requires that uses in the floor above the ground floor be restricted to multifamily residences. The existing building will maintain the existing office use, and thus a use variance pursuant to NJSA 40:55-70 D1 is required to permit a use that's not permitted. And the AH02 Affordable Housing Overlay Zone, Sections B17A 418B, limits the uses on the ground floor to retail, sales, services, office uses, and restaurants. The proposed building, the new apartment building, contains 2 residential affordable housing units on the ground floor, and a use variance is required for this as well. The applicant should show special reasons and why the strict application of this zoning prohibition of the requested use or development would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the land or buildings involved, and evidence that the requested relief may be granted without detriment to the public good or impairment of the intent of the zoning plan. They also should describe how the proposal relates to the master plan and the proposal's impact on the neighborhood, the community's needs, and set forth the legal arguments for the proposal as well as other pertinent information. The project also requires several bulk variances, side yard setback pursuant to Section B17A 420A2. A side yard is not required. However, if one is provided, it must be a minimum of 10 feet. And the proposed setback along Harrison Street is 5 feet. A rear yard setback, in accordance with Section B17A 420A, Section 3 requires a minimum rear yard setback of 15 feet. The proposed setback is 10 feet. And required parking spaces, the AH02, Section B17A 420 F1B requires 1.1 spaces for each unit after the first 5 residential units. The first 5 residential units are exempt from the parking requirements, and the parking requirement for the office use in the existing building is subject to the parking requirement in the underlying zone. So the total required parking is 19.1 spaces, 5.5 for the residential use, and 13.6 for the required office parking. 7 spaces are provided on site, 2 of which are EV charging stations, which results in 2 space credit for a total of 9 spaces provided on site. The percentage of compact parking spaces is limited per Section B17A 87F1 permits compact parking in lots of 100 cars or less, but limits the percentage of the compact spaces to 15%. The applicant is proposing 2 of the 8 parking spaces, or 25% of the total, to be compact. An additional variance is required for the parking setback in accordance with B17A 387C, which requires parking spaces to be set back a minimum of 4 feet from the property line. All the parking spaces are located within a foot of the property line, I believe on the northern, on the sides. Distance between buildings, section 17A 382. This requires a minimum of 10 feet between the buildings on the same lot. The proposed distance between the buildings varies with a minimum of 5 feet, a maximum of 10, and a general distance of 8 feet. Variance relief is requested. A design waiver in accordance with B17A 203 requires drive aisles in parking lot to be a minimum of 24 feet. Proposed drive aisle is 20 feet, and a variance is requested for that. I had written a lot about the affordable housing unit breakdown, which is not something that's really the individual characteristics of the affordable housing units. Is something that's under the domain of the zoning board, and I think the applicant will provide additional information regarding the type of units that will be set aside. So I will leave that for the applicant to fill in. I'd like to touch upon the executive summary for the Environmental Commission. The PEC commends the applicant and the Savetown Jugtown Community Group for coming together to achieve a design that blends more gracefully into the historic context of the central Jugtown intersection of Harrison and Nassau Streets than the first iteration did. Eliminating the 1-story and 5 units was a big concession from the applicant. However, in reducing the mass of the building and setting it apart from the Horner House, while still trying to maximize the units provided, the new design raises concerns which are addressed below. The Environmental Commission and municipal staff worked hard to develop the green developer checklist and to be user-friendly for the applicant and to be a necessary and valuable tool for the PEC to evaluate environmental costs and the benefits of the project. They have found the responses to many of the items in the checklist for this application to be unclear, making it difficult for the PEC to offer meaningful comments on them. Two examples, the developer refuses to commit to using Energy Star rated appliances or installing a roof which is at least solar panel ready. Additional comments regarding the 2 affordable units are the Soul apartments on the ground floor. Both apartments are also shown as being ADA compliant. Unless those apartments are intended to fill both affordable and accessible requirements, one of the units should be placed on an upper floor. Affordable units are not to be grouped in one area of the building. The ground floor apartments are subject to more noise from the street and require more artificial light along the interior walkway, and thus could be considered less desirable than the upper floor units. The new building should be all electric. The reduced parking requested appears inadequate for the scope of the finished project. It is unrealistic to assume the offices will not need on-site parking given the streets surrounding the project do not allow on-street parking. The applicant should procure formal legal arrangements for parking close by for the application to be approved. The zoning board can determine an appropriate number of stalls based on occupancy. While recognizing that the proposed bike parking is code compliant, if the reduced number of parking spaces is approved, there will be likely a greater demand for bike parking. The applicant should increase the number of secured bike parking on site. There is no building section in the architectural plans. A well-insulated envelope insulation beyond the requirement for the roof, walls, and floor of the apartments over the garage with well-insulated windows and high-efficiency appliances is extremely important, not just for reducing greenhouse gases, but to decrease utility costs, crucial for the affordable units. The PEC suggests using passive housing standards. Insulation and outsolation should be used to prevent thermal bridging and to reduce light pollution. Only dark sky compliant and bug rated lighting on the exterior should be used. Consider using dimmable lights and motion detectors so the exterior lights are only providing the light needed. Other recommendations, building and energy Use Forest Steward Council FSC certified wood and locally sourced wood. EV charging stations must be installed with only one charging station serving 2 stalls, one of which is for the ADA stall. The infrastructure for future EV chargers should be put in place during construction. Use rapidly renewable materials. Install heat pump, HVAC, and hot water equipment. Work with the Historic Preservation Commission to identify areas on the roof on both buildings where solar panels could be installed and make those areas solar ready, or even have solar panels installed, even better. Ensure that the mechanical units on the roof cannot be seen from the street. Interior solar shades should be installed on the windows to help minimize heat gain. Casement windows should open to catch the prevailing winds. Adding awning windows would allow some windows to be open for natural ventilation even when it is raining. Plumbing fixtures should have a water sense label. The plans for stormwater management and landscaping, the plans show a walkway with brick pattern between the buildings, but it is called out as concrete walk. Permeable pavers should be used on the interior walkway if applicable, given the proximity to both building foundations. With the parking garage partially exposed to the elements, porous pavement should be used in the garage at a minimum for the parking stalls. The placement of the trash enclosure seems problematic for 2 reasons. Unless the trash cans can be pushed through the lobby to the garage, the trash hauler will need to bring the bins down the walkway and around into the garage. Also, the trash enclosure is only 8 to 10 feet away from unit number 2's bedroom windows, excuse me. If the solar panels cannot be placed on the roof, a rooftop patio could provide green space for the tenants. Transportation, use best practices, providing e-bike charging stations to reduce the risk of fire in the building. Health, avoid using red list materials to improve air quality and reduce humidity, which can cause mold. Supply units with an energy recovery ventilator. Provide a pergola with vegetation over the northern section of the parking garage that is exposed to help mitigate the effects of lighting and fumes on the apartments above. Waste, the concrete and asphalt from the demolition of the parking lot and sidewalk should be recycled. Regarding the variances, the PEC said approving the use variance will allow the Horner House to remain as it is. They support those. Both the use variances, the minimum setback of parking stalls to the property line, which would provide less than 1 foot deep landscape strip, is concerning as it may not be ample space for plants and trees to thrive. Because unit 1 will face Harrison Street, the 5-foot setback is not sufficient and should be denied. Trucks idle at the traffic light outside the on Harrison Street, pollution and noise will be considerable. Privacy is also an issue, especially with the bedrooms placed at Harrison Street. They're suggesting a 10-foot setback and some landscaping that could mitigate those problems. The variance to provide less than 10 feet between buildings should be denied. The required 10 feet would provide some light and air to the apartments along the southern facade, along with some privacy in the first floor apartments. It would be hard to reduce the square footage of the apartments, but perhaps to alter the addition of the existing building, leaving the historic portion untouched. In the lease, the 5-foot separation at unit 2 should be expanded to 10 feet. They've requested that the fire marshal should be consulted on the safety of the variance of this relief. And just as an aside, I did speak to the fire marshal, and he did submit a short memo saying he does not have any issues with the application. Finally, comments and questions. Will parking be provided free of cost to the affordable units? The cost for parking for a vehicle that is necessary to getting to and from work should not be a financial burden. How will mail be delivered? Is there a secure area for packages? On page 4 of the zoning narratives, there's a mention of a possible elevator breakdown. I don't know, there's no elevator that I know of in the plans. Assuming that there will be cleaning service for the common areas and office spaces at 344 Nassau, and that there will be a periodic need for maintenance, where will those vehicles park? The architectural drawings do not indicate what standard measurement is used for the dimensions, making it hard to understand distances precisely when reviewing the plans. The PEC encourages greater diversity of bedroom units throughout the building. The applicant's marketing department should consider whether including some 1-bedroom apartments or studios would help decrease demand for parking spaces, but still provide the rental income needed to sustain the building. They have provided some alternative sketches for the accessible apartment building and the parking lot layout. But they don't have all the ADA spaces and that type of stuff. So I'm sure the applicant has seen that information. That's the PEC. Sorry for the long-winded recitation of that. And now I'd like to hand off to David Shore, unless there's any questions on the variances. Michael Floyd has it.
Yeah, I'm not specifically to the variances, although it is related a little bit. I just need some clarity on applicable code on two things. One is EV, that's municipal code, and is that correct?
No, it's state.
And the provision of EV, is that voluntary or is that mandated?
I believe it's mandated.
It is mandated, and the state statute then allows the credit to be given. So even though there's in actuality 7 actual parking spaces, the statute allows a credit for 2 more because the EV charging stations are being provided. So
Now,
it's really an incentive for the developer, and that's why the state, I guess, did that.
yes. Okay, and last related question on EV. Does it specify a number of EV? They're providing 2. Do they have to provide 2, or can they provide 1? If you know under the code. If not, maybe once we get to the excuse.
I'm not sure, Michael. I'm sure Chris's professionals might have.
Yeah. And then a question on the ADA compliant requirement units. They're proposing 2. Is it required that 2 be in a building of 10 units, or if you know, that's a state code too?
Yes.
The state requires all living units in rental apartments to be adaptable. I don't believe they require specific modified units or totally handicapped units, but they all need to be adaptable, which means it limits you on the modifications you can make. So effectively, it's a specialized unit.
Okay. And maybe we can get clarification there. Their application says they're going to be ADA compliant. And I know like you said, there's a difference between compliant and adaptable. Adaptable is putting the support behind the walls if you are going to put handrails in, whatever. So if they're going to be compliant, then there's, lower, they can explain it, but I wanted to know what's required. And if what Steve said is correct, it's, adaptable.
Yeah.
But that is because it affects the affordable, and we'll get there on that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Mr. Bridger, since you've spent some time presenting the PEC Commission memo and your own memo, we'll make those exhibits ZB3 and ZB4.
Okay.
And now I guess we need to swear in Mr. Shore. Mr. Shore, do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that our report has been furnished ahead of time, and I don't think everyone wants to hear me read it all in, but I do want to make a comment that I think is the salient point, and that is, let me just go to it. We wanted to have this in our memo, and which says representatives of Save Jugtown spoke during the hearing in support of the application, noting that the applicant met with Save Jugtown on several occasions and revised the design of the project to address their concerns. HPC members also commended the applicant for working in collaboration with Save Jugtown. And then we had a number of points that were in the memo, which I think has been distributed. If you need me to read them, I can. But I think what our point of view is that they came for a concept review, then they came for a first application that didn't work out so well, and it was withdrawn. And then they came back with a plan that we felt met a huge number of the concerns that we had, to the point that we were satisfied that this project could be recommended back to the zoning board with support from the HPC. Is that sufficient, Derek, or do you want me to go on?
You're muted, Derek.
I apologize. You might want to touch on the conditions, if any, that the HPC recommended.
Sure.
Michael?
I do think it really isn't the longest memo in the world. I think you could have read it in the time. So in case there's any board members that haven't read it, I think I'd like it to be read. It's not long.
Agree.
It's not long.
Okay, I'll do my best. "344 Nassau Street, LLC applicant has filed the above referenced application with your board for major site plans with variances for design waiver approval to construct a residential building with parking on the subject property. Applicant proposes to leave the existing structure intact and construct a freestanding building. The new building will be 3 stories and will be positioned to be 5 to 10 feet behind the existing building. Parking is proposed to be provided under the 2nd floor of the new building. The new building is proposed to be used only for residential purposes, and the existing building will be continued to be used as offices. The separation of uses avoids the need for interior demolition of the existing structure. The new building will contain 10 2-bedroom apartments, 2 of which will be deed restricted for affordable housing. The project requires bulk variances for setback from Harrison Street, the rear yard setback, side yard setback, number of parking spaces, percentage of compact car parking spaces, parking setback, distance between building and buildings on the same lot. The project requires use variances to permit residential use on the ground floor of the new building and office use on the upper floors of the existing building. The project requires a design waiver for the width of the parking lot drive aisle. The application was previously presented before the Princeton Historic Preservation Commission on February 2nd, 2023 for concept review. Following this review, a formal application was filed with the HPC to partially demolish the existing structure and construct a 4-story residential building. Such application was heard at special meetings on May 13th and 14th of 2024. The HPC expressed concerns regarding the height, massing, and architectural design of the proposed structure. A neighborhood advocacy group called Save Jugtown, was also opposed the application. Applicant withdrew the application before the board. The current application is for a revised design that addresses some of HPC's and Save Jugtown's comments and recommendations. The HPC serves in an advisory capacity to your board pursuant to Section 10B-39, Section 2 of the Princeton Code for the development proposed by the applicant because the subject property is located within the Jugtown Historic District and the NJ NRHP or New Jersey and National Register Historic District, Kings Highway, Upper Road, Lincoln Highway Historic District. Jugtown is a Type 2 historic district, which is subject to historic preservation plan review and recommendations to your board because the proposed actions are visible from the public right-of-way. The subject property is located in the neighborhood business zoning district with an affordable housing overlay. The existing structure is known as the Horner House, with the oldest portions of the building dating to 1760 and 1824. The major site plan and variance approvals sought by the applicant are intended to permit 1, reconfiguration of the parking lot, and 2, construction of a 10-unit multifamily residential building. The revised plans address the HPC's comments by 1, reducing the size of the new structure, and 2, by preserving the Horner House. The HPC held a hearing on the application at its meeting on December 1st of 2025, at which the applicant appeared and presented testimony of Daniel Barsky, who, and there's a mistake in the letter here that calls him the architect, but he's the owner, who was qualified as an expert. Applicant presented 2 exhibits, a PowerPoint presentation marked as Exhibit A-1 and color samples marked as A2. Representatives, as I read before, representatives of Save Jugtown spoke during the hearing in support of its application, noting that the applicant met with Save Jugtown on several occasions and revised the design of the project to address their concerns. HPC members also commended the applicant for working collaboratively through Save Jugtown. After considering the applicant's presentation, HPC submits the following comments and recommendations for your board's considerations. 1, comply with technical comments from the Historic Preservation Officer set forth in the memo dated November 16th, 2025. 2, revise the plans to delineate the preservation area to include the area from the property line to the back edge of the walkway. The walkway is to be included in the preservation area with the understanding that the walkway will be improved to modern safety standards and the landscaping is subject to site plan approval by the board. 3, revise the plans to provide details of the following. A, lobby canopy. B, exterior wall treatment for the ground floor of the proposed building. C, concrete curb planter walls along the driveway. 4, revise the plans to select an alternative tree to the Washington hawthorn in consultation with the Historic Preservation Officer. 5, require developer to conduct ground penetrating radar survey prior to ground disturbance and abide by applicable archaeological protocol if anything of significance is discovered. 5, revise the plans to reflect the color of the proposed building. The color of the proposed building will be the same as the existing structure. The HPC was split on this issue with 3 members in support of the color being the same as the existing structure, 1 in support of a different color in the same hue, and 1 member being neutral. The HPO, the Historic Preservation Officer, supported a different color in the same hue. The HPC appreciates the opportunity to submit these recommendations to your board for in regard to this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the HPC specifically recommended approval of this application.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shore, just to confirm, you're the vice chair, correct, of the HPC?
I am the vice chair, and as of now, when we have reorganization later in the month, that'll change.
Okay, to be chair?
to be chair.
Okay. Well, then why don't we make this an exhibit since Mr. Shore has now gone through the entire memo? Okay. All right.
Okay, Mr. Bridger, are we done with the opening remarks?
I believe so. I think if people have questions, we have Dan Dobromilski and Victor Anasika, Dan Dobromilski, landscape architect, and Victor, our traffic engineer consultant, for questions regarding testimony. But I think we should start the applicant's presentation.
Okay, well, I think it might not be a bad idea to ask questions as we go along with each presenter, because I don't know if the hearing is, we're going to get through it tonight, and I don't want to let things hanging out there. So, board members, do you have any question of the presentation so far?
A quick question for the Historical Preservation Commissioner.
Sure.
When you're looking at historical preservation, are you just looking at the front of a building?
We look at the exposure from the public right of way, which in this case is on 2 streets.
Okay, so you're not the concern of building another building 5 or 10 feet away from the back of that building doesn't present any problem for historic preservation.
Well, it does to a degree that the building should be easily distinguishable as what is new and what is old. And when we were discussing this with the applicant and understood that the limitation of their space really brought it to very close to the building, and I guess we accepted that as something that just part of the package here. But it is separate. It's not, it's not touching it. So it satisfies that need. Would we have liked to see it a little further? Sure. But in this case, it seemed to be what had to be worked out.
It'll be pretty hard to take a view of the back of the building, though.
The back of the building, but the side of the building.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, board members?
Mr. Chair, since you've indicated you'd like board members to ask questions as they go along, do you want to hear from Mr. Dobromilski and Mr. Anasike now? Because they did both present memorandums.
Okay, yes, I think it would be a good idea.
Okay, let's see. I see Mr. Dobromilski. We just need, there he is. And Dan, you just need to unmute yourself.
Good evening.
Great. Dan, do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Dobromilski, landscape architect for the municipality. I had a report of November 21st, 2025. There are 8 main comments in that. I'll kind of go through that really quickly. The first comment is related to existing trees. There are 8 mature existing trees and 18 recently planted trees, which are some arborvitae across the back of the property identified on the plan. This is comment 1, which is broken in A through F. 1A talks about the arborvitae that occur there. They were 6 to 7 feet tall. 4 of those trees are dead. All of them will have to be removed to construct the parking lot as proposed. There are 8 mature trees. Amongst the 8 mature trees are 3 ash trees and 1 elm tree along the northern property line. The ash closest to Harrison is severely declining, and the plans specify removal. And the other 2 probably have emerald ash borer infestation and should be removed. The plans propose to preserve 2 of these trees, possibly either due to the location on the adjacent property or actually on the property line, which would suggest shared ownership of the trees. However, they should be removed because they're probably failing and dying soon. The elm tree is located at the northern property bound. It does have some poor branching, but that in itself does not suggest that it should be removed. However, the reconstruction of the curb in this area will likely result in damage to the root system and the demise of the tree. The remaining planting strip will be very narrow. It would be more practical to remove this tree and implement a new landscape plan, new landscape that better fits this space. And that's what they have proposed, is to remove that tree. There is a Colorado spruce internal to the site that will have to be removed for the existing building or the new building. There is a tree located on Harrison Street, a red maple, a pretty large tree. It's in close proximity to the new building entrance. And also a new walk will be located in this area, which will reduce the root zone of the tree. I commented that it'd be nice to have a tree in that location. However, there are overhead wires and the building is now encroaching on the canopy of that tree. As such, the root zone and the canopy of that tree will be significantly reduced and most likely will not allow for that tree to survive. And so I suggested that that tree should be removed and replaced. Finally, there are several mature existing trees along the edge of the parking lot shared with this lot and the edge of the lot behind number 350 Nassau. These trees include 3 Tree of Heaven and 1 Empress tree. These are highly invasive trees. One of them is a preferred host for spotted lanternfly. The concern is that once this building is constructed, it'll be much more difficult to remove these trees. So it would seem pragmatic to consider and coordinate with the adjacent property owner on how they could be removed, either during construction of this property or depends upon what happens adjacent. Comment number 2 discusses the narrow strip at the back of the parking lot. The ordinance establishes that when the strip is less than 4 foot width, the visual screening can be achieved by a fence subject to the board or officer of jurisdiction. The plan proposes a 6-foot high black aluminum picket fence, which will not be providing screening, and there's no planting proposed. This is where the existing arborvitaes are that will be removed. So the landscape design does not address the screening of the parking lot from the adjacent, I think it's the firehouse in that location. Along Harrison Street, the parking lot will be reconstructed and the fence will actually wrap around that corner. And there are some low evergreen plantings, ground cover plantings proposed in a 5-foot strip. This is a practical approach for that location since site distances will have to be maintained. There is one new understory tree, the Washington hawthorn that HPC commented on, at the west corner of the parking lot. This tree selection exhibits a height and canopy width that is shorter and narrower and actually fits the space very well in terms of the growth and mature growth of the tree. It is so that makes sense, that type of tree, whether it has to be that type. I mean, there are other trees that could meet that same requirement. I'm not sure what the concern was from HPC regarding Washington hawthorn, but there are other options. Excuse me. It is not clear if there's sufficient space to plant trees along the northern edge of the parking lot adjacent to the firehouse to provide shade for the parking lot as suggested by Township Code. However, trees to replace the ash and elm trees previously noted to be removed may be able to be planted on the adjacent property if they can coordinate with them. I mentioned that if the red maple along Harrison is removed, it would make sense to add something back in there that would fit the space, similar to with the wires in the building. Comment 6 discusses the presence of English ivy, which is also an exotic invasive plant in the buffer strip of the property, and it would be desirable to remove that to get rid of an invasive species, but also the ivy will tend to invade the canopy of trees if it is left. Comment 7 talks about looking to add some type of decorative pavement or treatment along the Harrison Street entrance to kind of match the idea of the Nassau Street entrance. And then comment eight discusses just some additional specifications for the planting schedule on the landscape plan. And that's all I have.
Thank
If there's
you.
any questions.
I have one. So the existing, I guess, dense planting screen that separates this from the adjacent building next to it on Harrison Street will be eliminated, and then just a metal picket fence will be installed. So there'll be no screening for the parking or the underside of the building from that side.
Correct. From the northern
The northern
it's the
property line.
firehouse, and then wrapping around the corner of towards Harrison. There's no screening. That'll be those it'll be a black metal picket fence with low landscape on the Harrison Street frontage and nothing along the back where there's a really narrow strip. Most likely, if that strip remains only 1 foot, they would need to coordinate with the adjacent firehouse for any landscape because it's going to end up on the property line at best.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Board members, any questions of Mr. Dobromirski? Okay.
Thank you.
We'll make your memo ZB6, Exhibit ZB6.
I do have one question.
Yes.
It's hard to imagine where any replacement trees would go, given how tight this project seems to be on the lot. So is the requirement to replace trees that are taken just being, ignored?
Well, that's a separate code. There is a code requirement for a tree removal that you have to put trees back. There are exceptions for that for exotic species and also for trees that are dying or are failing. So I didn't analyze it relative to that. Typically, the arborist, the municipal arborist, does that. The code I was referring to was that when you have a parking lot, you're required to have some shade trees within the parking lot to shade the parking lot. And they don't meet that. They don't have any shade trees to meet that. And if you wanted to try and do that, that northern property line would be where you'd have to do it. There's only 1 foot wide, so you can't do it on their property. They'd have to do it on the adjacent property at best.
So there's a lot to remember and a lot to think about in this whole project. But it seems to me that that's something we would need to make a note of, not to let that pass, that would be a requirement that they obtain an agreement with the other property before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the fire company would agree to it, or I'm not sure.
Is it the fire company? Isn't it?
Yep.
Isn't it the medical building? Or
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. It is a medical office building.
yeah.
I stand corrected.
There's a drive. Yeah, there's a drive immediately adjacent to the property, a single lane driveway that connects the whole Earth Center parking, the back of the office building with Harrison Street. So there's really no place to plant. And once that planting comes out, the fencing will provide no screening whatsoever.
I misunderstood who owned that property.
Okay, but that's good. We're in agreement.
So a waiver would be necessary if they can't do anything.
Well, they can't do anything by choice.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, let's hear from our traffic engineer.
Joanna CK, we'll just swear you in. Do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
My memo was dated November the 14th. I have it broken down into two sections: the traffic impact analysis and the site plan review. Each section has 5 comments. I'll just highlight the critical ones, the one I think have major concern. For the traffic impact study or traffic impact analysis, the first comment is really more of an acknowledgement. The trip generation, the amount of traffic that will be generated by the new residential will be very low. So I don't see any significant impact from the traffic aspect of a number of traffic volumes. The comment number 2 is of more concern because of parking. The existing parking for the office use is being eliminated. Right now, there's 16 parking spaces there. After I read the report from the applicant's traffic engineer, I visited the site. I spent about 3 hours in the morning to observe the usage at this location. I noticed that for the 3 hours, peak hour in the morning, 9 spaces were fully occupied out of the 16 spaces. And then the remainder spaces were being turned over. You had vehicles are coming, park there for a short duration, and then they leave. So there was a lot of usage of the parking spaces. So the comment in the applicant's report that the office uses will resort to walking and biking was not supported by my observation. And also, there's also a comment in their report that the applicant will aim to lease parking spaces for existing office building. That measure is recommended. If they can lease alternate parking spaces for the office building, I think that would be an appropriate mitigation. But just assuming that everybody is going to walk and bike for the existing office, I don't think is acceptable. The second comment, which will be my comment number 3, which I think needs to be addressed, is the access to the YCAT building. They have 5 spaces to the north of the existing office building. So the access to it is through the site's parking lot. Now, just looking at the site plan, it just appears that the northern facade of the new building will kind of constrain access into 2 of the parking spaces of that YCAT building. So I've asked that they provide a turning template to demonstrate how vehicles will go into that parking space and come out without any constraint. Hopefully, they'll provide that in testimony today. The other, I think that's the 2 main comments for traffic impact. For the site plan, I did make comments regarding the comment number 6 talks about the pedestrian access to the building. Once the building is in place, there will be no access to the office through the back. The only access to the office will be from the front, which will be Nassau Street. And right now, I don't see any accessible paths through Nassau Street. So I'm asking for clarity on that, how pedestrians will access Nassau Street through an ADA. The second comment that I think should be addressed will be comment number 8. Again, it talks about the location of the garbage collection, garbage trash area. It's in between the new building and the existing office building. And the only path through there is the narrow 4 feet sidewalk that separates the two buildings. So it's unclear how garbage collection will be conducted from this location. So I'm also asking for testimony as to how they propose to collect garbage from this location. And then the last one, it's also about delivery. The delivery to the office buildings. Again, access to the office is no longer through Harrison. There's no entrance to the office from the back except from Nassau Street. So if deliveries are going to be made to the office buildings, it seems to me that the trucks will have to park on Nassau Street to be able to go in through the front to deliver. And my concern is that trucks are going to be parked on Nassau Street. Whether it's for 5 minutes, they jump out to go deliver. Some deliveries might be a little longer. I don't know how that is going to be addressed, or if they have a plan as to where deliveries will be made to the office. Also, that also pertains to maintenance trucks. If there's any kind of maintenance that's going to be done in that area, where they will be parked to do all that. And then the final comment is really about the just design standard. I'm asking that the sidewalk, the minimum width of 5 feet be provided for new sidewalks. Right now, they're showing 4 feet. That's all. I'm ready to take any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Please.
Going back to site plan review number 6.
Yes.
When you say accessible path, and when you use the word accessibility, I think what you're saying is
Wheelchair.
for anybody. Oh, okay. That's what I wasn't sure if you were saying it's not possible for anyone to get in, or whether it was handicap accessibility.
Yeah,
Okay.
when we talk about accessibility, it's more of a handicap.
Got it.
Right.
Well, that's not good, but it's if nobody could get in, that would be something we want to address for sure.
Right.
Yes.
I have a quick question too,
Sure.
if I might. You just mentioned deliveries to the front building. How would deliveries to the apartments be done?
Well, yeah, if anything, there's a 7-space parking lot for the apartments. So they can still use that to deliver to the apartments because within their parking lot.
Okay. And then they might have to back out onto Harrison Street when they are done.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have
Any
a
other-
question.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, number 5 of the traffic impact, speaking about the leading pedestrian interval signal. I just wanted to comment. I guess this is a matter that gets taken up ultimately by who, if a signal change is to happen there. I'm curious about that because of the statement, we're not aware of any safety concerns at this intersection. I have been there on 2 occasions when pedestrians were hit there and emergency services called, specifically, at this Harrison-Nassau intersection.
So the leading pedestrian interval is typically used when you have high volume of pedestrians and they don't have enough time to cross the road. So you give them a lead phase. So you pass a lot of pedestrians before you start releasing the vehicles. But based on the counts and the data they have from the analysis, there's very low pedestrian crossings there. It's not a high volume pedestrian. So they can still cross using the typical walk and don't walk light without changing the system to give you a lead pedestrian interval. And in any case, Nassau Street is a DOT, is a state road.
Okay.
So NJ DOT will have to approve any changes to the signal.
Okay.
Not something the municipality can do by itself.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll
Okay.
make Mr. Anasiki's letter on DB7.
Okay. Well, we've gone through our presentations, basically. We should start the applicant's presentation. Mr. Tar, will you be starting it?
I will.
Can we take 5 minutes, Steve?
We can. Okay, it is 9:13. We'll reconnect at 9:18.
Hey, Claudia,
Yes.
I was thinking Clifford Zink and Kathy Knight and Don Denny are with Save Jugtown, and we were going to have them speak right after us. Could they be elevated if you can find them?
Sure. So there's Clifford Sink.
Clifford Zink, Kathy Knight, Knight, and Donald Denny, Denny. Hey, Clifford.
I don't see Kathy.
Oh, I'll ask Clifford if he takes himself off mute. Hey, Clifford.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Fine, thanks. There's Don. So it's just Don and Clifford that I asked that you be elevated.
Actually, Kathy is in the process of logging on separately.
Oh, okay. So I'll ask Claudia to let her elevate her too. It looks to me like we're not going to finish tonight or even get to too much of you guys. Daniel has his slide presentation and George Jacquemart and Cray Rayenkamp are going to talk. So we'll just see how far we get. They usually like to knock off at 10:30.
Okay.
Everybody left as soon as you got here.
Well, Kathy
Hi,
Knight's
Don.
still not on. So maybe there's an iPhone. I don't know who that is though.
It'll probably be Kathy. She was going to use her iPad, I think, to get on. I know she's trying.
I'm going to get a glass of water.
Well, if you can let her know to raise her hand when she gets on.
Yeah. No, nowhere
Hey,
near.
Dan. Nope. Okay. Well, but they haven't seen yours yet. You always get frustrated when they don't even know who's next door or how many trees there are. You just gotta get your presentation on. I know, but it's been this way your whole lifetime. It's not gonna change.
Chris, you're not on mute.
Yeah, just little things like the Cohen says, well,
Chris, you're not on mute.
yeah.
Okay, it's 9:18. As soon as we get our board members back, we will reconvene. Okay, we're waiting for Harlan. Okay, all right. Mr. Tar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned when we got started, we've got 4 witnesses. I think we can save some time by getting them all sworn at once. I'll ask Daniel Barsky, Marina Rubina, Georges Jacquemart, and Craig Rayenkamp to be sworn. And then in that order, they could spell their last for the chair.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Camp, Ms. Rabina, Mr. Jacquemart, and Mr. Barsky. Do you all swear or affirm that your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Do.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Daniel, you start, spell your last.
Barsky.
Marina,
Rubina.
Georges,
Jacquemart.
and Craig.
And Camp, Rahenkamp.
Thanks, everybody. We're going to begin with a slide presentation from Daniel Barsky. And so I'm going to ask that that presentation be marked A1. I'm not sure exactly how many slides we'll end up with, but as we finish up, we'll identify it and make sure that Claudia has a list of each slide.
Okay.
Daniel, can you share?
I can.
There we go. Got it.
All right. Hello. Good evening. My name is Daniel Barsky, and I will be presenting on behalf of the applicant for the project on 344 Nassau Street. So on slide 1 here is a historical picture of the building on 344 Nassau Street, which was originally built in 1760 and is also known as the Joseph Horner House. It's located in the neighborhood, which is historically called the Jugtown District. And much of this application is based on the preservation of this building and preserving its historic context within Princeton. The site is located on the corner of Nassau and Harrison Street and is oriented within the heart of Princeton. It's only several blocks from downtown, from Princeton Shopping Center, and multiple parks. It's also right next door to the Whole Earth Supermarket, Bank of America, and has easy and accessible availability to public transportation. This is a picture of the front facade of the existing building looking from Nassau Street. On slide 4 is a picture of the side elevation looking from Harrison Street. And on slide 5 is a picture of the rear of the existing building where the parking lot is located. It's worth noting that the rear of this building was actually an addition built in 1985 onto the existing historical home. And on slide 6 is a picture of the rear property line, which backs up to the foot and ankle doctor, where you can see the parks where the cars park along the rear boundary line. The proposed parking is virtually in the same place as it is right now, but I'll come back to that later in the presentation. And one of the comments I heard is about screening and buffering trees. This is the buffering, just so we can look at an image of what's actually there right now. On slide 7 is the existing survey plan. The site is currently occupied by 2 floors of office space located on a 1/4 acre lot with an open parking lot in the rear. The office space's existing use is primarily comprised of a bunch of office tenants who lease small individual office spaces. Oftentimes, they're leasing spaces per room, actually. And the property is located in the AHO2 zone, which is illustrated here on slide 8. The AHO2 zone partially overlaps with the edge of the historic Jugtown district. You can see the blue star on the slide indicates the property's location. The affordable overlay zone was implemented to provide much needed affordable housing in Princeton, which this project does incorporate. On these following slides, 10 through 17, I'll just show some pictures of surrounding buildings in the area for context of the neighborhood. On slide 10 is a picture of 341 Nassau Street, which is on a catty corner from 344. I included a reference to building height for some of the existing buildings to illustrate the rationale behind the design of our proposed new building, which I'll cover a little bit later on. This is the rear of the same building on 341 Nassau Street. 338 Nassau Street, which is looking across Harrison Street from our location. 342 Nassau Street, right next door. 350 Nassau Street is the neighboring property, the Weichert building. And 345 Nassau Street is directly across the street where Remax currently resides. 14 North Harrison Street is across the street on Harrison, just one lot down. And the foot and ankle doctor on 11 North Harrison Street, which is directly in the rear. So I don't want to upset my friends at HPC and neighbors by bringing up a past application, but it's important that I give the history behind the approval process on this site. Over a year ago, I was in front of HPC presenting a proposal for a 4-story, 45-foot high, 16,000 square foot addition. The proposal was to attach this addition onto the rear of the existing building over the parking lot. Here's a rendering of what that looked like. To be clear, this rendering on slide 17 is not what we are proposing today, today's zoning board meeting. And that's because we heard from HPC and many of the neighbors, led by the Save Jugtown group, about their displeasure with the proposal. The consensus from the community was that this previous proposal was not consistent with the historical district and neighborhood, specifically in terms of scale and massing. Most importantly, attaching a new building to the existing Horner House was a major concern in preservation of the historical significance of the site. The previous proposal, the previous design proposed 15 units among 4 stories in a much larger building, than in my newly revised proposal. But it's critical to note that this previous proposal was conforming to zoning in all respects. It met all the criteria for a fully conforming application after it went through the municipality's completeness process. Moving forward with this previous proposal would mean that I wouldn't have to come here tonight in front of the zoning board for any relief. However, after hearing feedback from HPC and my neighbors, instead of plowing forward with a fully compliant application, we decided to revise our proposal with the help and collaboration of Save Jugtown leadership to propose a new building that is more in line with the neighborhood and better preserves the historic streetscape. Now, on slide 22 is our revised building proposal that we're here today to hopefully get approval from the zoning board for. This new design proposes a freestanding building, totally independent and detached from the existing historical Horner House. There will be no demolition or disruption to the existing building. The height has been significantly reduced to 37 feet and only 3 stories. And this proposed building is significantly smaller in scale. It has 1/3 the amount of square feet and 1/3 the amount of units, 10 instead of 15. It's visually compatible within its relationship to the neighborhood and does not detract from the neighborhood's historical elements. Thanks to collaborating with our neighbors and HPC, we were able to come up with a plan that has been overwhelmingly well received by HPC and the surrounding neighbors. We feel this new design complements and preserves the existing historical building and providing an aesthetic improvement to the gateway of Princeton. So this new proposal has 10 residential units. 2 or 20% of them will be allocated to the affordable housing obligation. The existing building, the existing Horner House, is to remain under its existing use as a commercial space. And the following slides show 2D elevations from each side of the newly proposed buildings. This is the west elevation facing Harrison Street. The new building proposes Pella Lifestyle aluminum clad casement windows with lower window panels to mimic the same casing dimensions as on the exterior facing doors. Juliet balconies are proposed on the north, south, and west elevations. An exterior acrylic stucco is proposed for the new building with the color to match the existing Horner House. The simple design is meant to distinguish this building from the historical Horner House, but still complement the historic nature of the site and of the neighborhood. Reducing the scale and massing of the building, along with its simple design, allows this proposed building to nestle into the site without greatly detracting from the Horner House. Again, critical to the design was to have it freestanding and totally separate from the existing building. And on slide 24 is the south elevation, which faces the existing building on 344 Nassau. The north elevation, which faces the Foot and Ankle Doctor. And the east elevation, which faces Weichert. On slide 28 is a cross-section of the building floors and height. So we're proposing a 35-foot assembly with a 1-foot parapet, totaling 36 feet, reducing the height from the original 45-foot high compliant application was important in establishing compatibility with the neighborhood. And as illustrated earlier, the height is in keeping with other buildings within the immediate vicinity. And this reduced height and scale ensures that from Nassau Street, the new building will not be seen from either side of the road as depicted in this sightline drawing. So standing on the sidewalk closest to the building and on the opposite side of Nassau. The floor plans are relatively simple. There is access to a lobby from both the parking lot and the walkway. The building will be comprised of 9 2-bedroom apartments and 1 3-bedroom apartment, which is to be deeded for the affordable obligation. and 2 of these apartments are located here on the ground floor. There's a walk-up stairway and 4 more units on the second floor, and then 4 more on the third. The second and third floor layouts are identical, so these are repeats for second and third floor. And there's a proposed flat roof with a parapet where condensers will be located. They're located in the middle of the span, so they won't be disruptive to the street and won't be visible. And I heard this come up in one of the comments. I will install solar panel ready provisions during the course of construction. And this revised plan, as we heard from the chairman, was encouraged and later approved by HPC. The redesign, again, was coordinated with Save Jugtown leaderships, our neighbors, and found to be compatible and aesthetically appropriate. Separating the new from the old, not disturbing the historic Horner House in any way, and reducing the scale and massing of the new building was an essential component of this compromise that HPC voted to approve. Here's a colored up version of the site plan, which depicts the existing and proposed buildings. Shaded in purple is the existing Horner House, and in yellow, the proposed new building. Again, with no attachments or demolition proposed. Totally preserving the existing building and providing a separation buffer was critical. There is a 5-foot to 10-foot separation between old and new, with a walkway connecting the 2 buildings to the sidewalk on Harrison Street. The darker yellow shading is the first floor footprint of the new building, and the lighter shaded yellow is the second and third floor overhang. The parking lot is mostly covered by the new building, which includes 7 parking stalls. The trash and recycling is located in the corner of the lot between the buildings, behind a fenced enclosure, where it does not impact any streetscapes, but is easily accessible for the existing and new buildings to access. And also bicycle parking has been addressed with bike storage distributed under the lobby door canopy, outdoor at the end of the walkway, and inside the building. The new building setback is increased to 5 feet from Harrison Street right away, which allows the new construction to be behind the existing Horner House, which reduces the impact of the development on the historic building. But as a result of separating the buildings, though this newer version, this new iteration is much smaller in scales, variances were triggered. So it was compliant, but oddly enough, much bigger addition, much bigger project. Now it's been scaled back in massing and scale, separated, but variances were triggered. And I'll give an overview of these variances and then speak to each in detail. So there's a side yard variance where we provide 5 feet, and the requirement is, strangely enough, 0 feet or 10 feet. There is a rear yard variance where we provide 10 feet and 15 feet is required. And then, of course, there's the use variance for having residential on the first floor of the newly proposed building and retaining existing office space on the second floor of the existing building. So to go through these one at a time, the side yard setback, again, requires 0 or 10. We originally had 0 feet, which was compliant, but after our discussions with Save Jugtown and HPC, we decided that wouldn't be appropriate. And again, though compliant in our original application, and 10 feet was set back too far given already the reduced footprint of the proposed structure. So with collaboration from Save Jugtown, we determined 5 feet would be an appropriate setback to preserve the significance of the existing Horner House. And at 5 feet, the new building is set back behind that existing structure. The rear yard setback is proposed at 10 feet. And to be clear, the 10 feet is to the second and third floor overhang, which is the orange line on the screen. It's more like 30 feet to the first floor footprint, which is the yellow line. The property backs up to an active easement, which is there to access the Whole Earth supermarket parking lot. And the site backs up to a commercial zone where currently the Foot and Ankle Doctor is located. So we feel the impact is minimal considering there's not residential zoning in the rear and that we are still providing a 10-foot buffer. And there is a setback variance request for parking buffer where 4 feet is required and we are providing 1 foot. Again, the property backs up to an easement and a commercial zone, and the proposed parking along the rear is virtually in the same place as the existing conditions, as I showed in one of the earlier slides. There is a fence proposed along the rear of the property in front of the parking stalls. The use variance specifically is triggered from preservation of the existing building. So under the AHO2, only commercial use is permitted on the ground floor and only residential on floors above. In this instance, we're proposing to preserve the existing use on both the first and second floor office spaces in the existing Horner house. The use there is to remain unchanged, but it does trigger a variance in the AHO2. And in the rear, we are proposing 2 residences on the ground level, which is a variance condition under the AHO2. This is partly due to the fact that there is a requirement to provide a certain percentage of affordable units to be handicap accessible units to for affordable housing. And since there's no elevator in the building, the ground floor access fulfills that requirement. Additionally, permitting residences on the ground floor allows us to reduce the height of the building. So that's how we're able to fully eliminate the 4th story, which was essential in preserving the historic nature of the site. And there is a variance request under section 382-383 for minimum building separation for structures on the same property. The minimum distance requirement is 10 feet between buildings on the same lot. On slide 37, it illustrates the variance conditions under section 382-383. And to be clear, the proposal meets the requirements to adjacent neighbors. We're seeking relief for minimum distance between buildings on the same lot. Illustrated here are the separations between old and new. The distances vary from 5 feet, where it's non-conforming, to 10 feet, where it is conforming. The new building can't be distanced any further without triggering many other bulk variances and parking variances. Most importantly, the proposed separations meet fire and building code. It's worth noting too that the existing building is fully sprinklered and the proposed building will be sprinklered as well. In the original proposal, because the buildings were attached, there was room for parking on both sides of the drive aisle. Now that the buildings are separated, parking has been reduced, triggering variances in relation to parking. Number of stalls, 8 where 19 are required. Percentage of compact stalls, 25% where 15% are permitted. And width of the drive aisle, 20 feet where 24 feet is required. The plan calls for 7 parking spaces and gives 8 with the credit for EV charging. 19 spaces are required, mostly due, in my opinion, to the outdated underlying parking requirements for office space that I'll discuss on the next slide. There are 2 compact stalls proposed where only 1 is permitted and a 20-foot drive aisle where 24 feet is required. And I have a traffic expert who will testify on parking more generally, but I can speak to parking as a local resident, developer, and landlord. I'll start off by saying we believe the parking variances are justified in the attempt to preserve the historic Horner house. Distinguishing and separating the buildings reduce the total number of parking stalls from compliant amount that we were providing to non-compliant. More importantly, this site is located in town. It has walkable and bikeable access to supermarkets, banks, the Princeton Shopping Center, and downtown, as I illustrated in an earlier slide. And as someone who owns other rentals in town, a handful on Nassau Street, for people who are looking to rent in this part of town, parking is not a priority. They rent at these locations for the walkability and bikeability, along with easy access to public transportation and downtown amenities. We have buildings down the street with zero parking, on-site or off-site, for almost identical two-bedroom units. These units are sought out by people who do not have a car and enjoy the benefit of renting at a discounted rate due to that fact. That also includes commercial space. Garden State Tile, for instance, located on 205 Nassau Street, rents the whole first floor from us with no parking. Their employees work in town, they walk to work. Generally, the town has changed its thinking about parking requirements, as witnessed in the planner's memo. RSIS has also redefined its criteria of parking demands from minimum to maximum number of parking spaces. This is because typically the market will determine the demand for rentals that do not provide parking, and landlords just simply adjust their rates to fill units. This, of course, is true and results in cheaper rents for people who will be walking, biking, and using public transport. The existing office space is currently being rented out per room. So they're little individual office spaces, but after construction of the new building will be repurposed, rented out at a discounted rate to a single tenant whose parking demands will match the site's availability. And I can't disclose at the moment, but we're already in talks with a single-use tenant who has minimum parking needs. Also, currently on the site, I do lease out spaces to other people that are not renting my office spaces there. So the current conditions really aren't reflective of market demands. I think also it's worth mentioning the underlying parking requirements for the site. According to the AHO2, 5.5 spaces are required for the 10 residential units. However, a whopping 15 spaces are required for the existing commercial building, which uses the outdated underlying zoning. We feel that this is a gross overestimation of actual parking needs in downtown. Lastly, on parking generally, the reduced amount of parking stalls also ensures less traffic in and out of the site on a relatively busy corner, ensuring safer conditions with less overall traffic coming in and out. And we were able to secure leases and letter of intents from neighboring properties with available spaces to rent. I don't anticipate I'll need all these spaces to fill the units, but this is just to illustrate that there's lots of parking available in this part of town, in the vicinity. Also, Bank of America, they don't issue letters of intent, but they verbally represented that they would lease spaces as well once we're ready to commit to a lease with them. And before I address comments from the municipal memos, and while we're on the topic of parking, I'd like to introduce Georges Jacquemart, a traffic consultant expert. I guess I'll allow Chris Tarr to qualify him and give him a few moments to speak further about parking.
Thank you, Daniel. George, you've testified in Princeton many times, but just for those members of the board and the public who aren't aware, I'm going to read from your resume. You are a New Jersey professional planner. You're a professional engineer in California, New Jersey, and New York. You have a Master of Science degree in urban planning from Stanford University. Interestingly, you've been a consultant to Princeton University on parking and traffic matters since 1988. You've worked on projects such as Arts and Transit, the Lake Campus, and a separate project for Palmer Square traffic modifications. I believe that you could be called the father of the roundabouts that exist on Faculty Road.
Well, I think Mr. Tarr, we'll accept Mr. Jacquemart as an expert in his field. If you'd
Thank
like
you.
to continue discussing his qualifications just for audience benefit, that's fine, but we'll accept it.
And I appreciate that, Chair. We'll move right along.
Thank you and good evening, Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is George Jacquemin, and I'll address some of the parking and traffic concerns that were raised. This particular figure that we're looking at shows the turning movements for some of the parking spaces in the lot. You know, the concern here is that the aisle, the circulation aisle, is 20 feet when a kind of a standard aisle, let's say in a shopping center, tends to be 24 feet. And you know, that width is not required because of the two-way circulation. It's required because of the vehicles to get in and out of the parking stalls for the maneuvering, and in some cases, you know, like in the shopping center where we have a lot of maneuvers in and out, people stay, you know, half an hour or an hour. We want those maneuvers to occur relatively easily. In this case, you can see that these vehicles can get in and out of the parking stalls. And in my view, there's no concern that there would be any difficulty in the circulation, especially in this case, the parking stalls will be assigned. So people know the parking lot, they will be used to get in and out, and they tend to stay longer, you know, whether it's all night or all day. So it works well. And what helps in this case also is that each of the standard parking stalls here is 9 feet wide. So that in itself helps the maneuver in and out of the space. The other advantage of the 20-foot aisle here is where the aisle meets the sidewalk. So this conflict area between pedestrians and cars is less, and so it makes it a more pleasant and pedestrian environment and a safer pedestrian environment. I want to mention the discussion on the parking situation, that there are 7 spaces here. The code requires more spaces, and I agree with what Mr. Barsky said. The code is excessive. You know, these kind of spaces, office spaces in this area, would not need 15 parking spaces. I checked what the Institute of Transportation Engineers says for this size of office buildings, and it tends to be more in the range of 9 feet as opposed to 14 or 15 feet, what your code would require. And I think the fact, the way the applicant approaches it as the landlord who has obligations, to fill this building, whether the residential portions or the office portions, and he will find solutions in the neighborhood, I think is a very practical approach, a realistic approach for any kind of, denser area in an urban environment. I want to mention also the left turn prohibition. I think Mr. Anosike suggested today there's a 24/7 left turn prohibition, and that can stay, but I agree with Mr. Anosike. It could be changed to just peak hours. That's really up to the municipality. I think the applicant is flexible in that regard. I just want to correct something that Mr. Anosike said. In our report, we do not say that the office tenants will shift to walking, bicycling, and commuting by bus. Some of them will, but I agree also with what Mr. Barsky said. He will look for other locations for people to park. So I think not everyone obviously will shift to walking, bicycling, or buses. There is a parking demand there, and I think it can be addressed. There's one minor correction also. We have in our report, we mentioned a 4-foot sidewalk. If you look at the site plan, the engineer's site plan, it is actually a 5-foot sidewalk. It's a sidewalk that's substantially better than what's there today. Today, if you look at the photo of the existing sidewalk, there's a utility pole in the middle. It's not even, I think there's not enough room for a person in a wheelchair to pass there. Finally, the comment on the LPI, the leading pedestrian interval. In the original application, we mentioned that as a possibility to make the intersection a little bit more pedestrian friendly. The LPI that's typically implemented, and we have them a lot in New York City, It's a very common treatment. And it's not caused specifically by the volume of pedestrians. It's not a question that we have to do it to accommodate larger volumes. The real purpose of it is to make the pedestrian crossing safer, to let the pedestrians start crossing 4, 5, 6 seconds earlier before the cars get a green time, so they can claim the sidewalk before the cars are starting, and you kind of eliminate the competition between the pedestrians and cars that turn and may be in conflict. So it's seen as a very good alternative to what we call sometimes the exclusive pedestrian phase, where all cars would be stopped and the pedestrians have a completely protected phase. So that's just a comment in regards to what was mentioned earlier, and it is up to New Jersey DOT to implement it. I think that's all my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Jacquemart, you're saying that you feel that that there is adequate parking in the area. I think in my opinion, we'd like to get some sort of concrete commitment for parking, because you are going from a requirement of, or an existing parking lot of 19 spaces. I think I had that correct. Down to 7. And you're increasing you're going from 16 spaces down to 7, and you're increasing significantly the population on the site. So I think it's important that there be a commitment for the parking to go with this application.
I think that Mr. Barsky addressed that by having signed, and I don't know exactly, he may have to explain it in more detail. He did show, I think, 3 agreements with neighboring properties that seem to be prepared to accommodate some of the parking demand.
Well, I guess we'll see when he submits those to us formally as part of the application.
I think that was in his presentation, one of the slides preceding the slide that we're looking at.
Okay. Well,
yes,
I haven't seen anything come before us other than what he showed us in the slide. So I'd like to see something more formal.
Okay.
Chairman,
Yes.
Nathan Foot has his hand raised.
Yes, please.
Yes. Sorry, I apologize. I'm not sure what the procedure is for the zoning board, whether I should jump in or raise my hand. So thank you, Derek. Yeah, I just want to echo, Mr. Chairman, what you mentioned. You know, a couple of things. First of all, obviously parking agreements displayed on a screen, nice, but I think we do need to review what those agreements actually say. It can't just be, a few seconds on a screen. Now, whether that's part of an approval process or whether that needs to be formal before an approval, that's up to the board, the board's discretion. But the other thing about it, I don't know if it's possible to bring up a map right now. Again, I wasn't able to jot down what those addresses were. But again, there is this large site next to it that is going to be, or at least is slated to be, an affordable housing development site. And if those are the properties that are being presented, that was probably going to present a problem later on down the line. And so we just want to get ahead of any of that before it does become an issue. So that's one aspect. I actually have several things I just want to go through real quick.
Nathan, if you don't mind, can I finish going through my memo and presentation, and then, because maybe I'm going to be addressing some of your questions as I continue on with the memos.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if that's the pleasure of the board, then I will.
Why don't we let Mr. Foot finish first, and then you can step in.
Yeah, so I'll go through this quickly. First of all, Mr. Jacquemart mentioned assigned parking. I just and this might be one of the things that Mr. Barsky is going to touch on. But I do want to hear more about the assigned parking. It's the materials that have been submitted, or at least that have been reviewed, are a little the details on that aren't clear. So I just want would like to hear additional details on those. There's several points of clarification that I'll get to at a different time. And then one thing that I'm looking at the plans, and I just want to have addressed somewhat. I'm just realizing now that there are columns in between some of the parking spaces. If we could just get some clarification on how that's affecting the width at those particular parking spaces. As I said, I have other comments, but I'm going to let those go for the moment and let the presentation continue on.
Okay. All right, Mr. Barsky.
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
I thought you were taking questions on parking.
Yes, please.
And if I could ask Mr. Barsky, because I may have missed it, I may not have. I didn't. Regarding the office tenants, I didn't hear you, but maybe I just was thinking of something else at the time. Say that they will not be provided parking on the parking lot. Is that still the case?
No, I didn't say that. I actually, a little bit later on, I talk about how I intend to distribute the parking.
Oh, okay.
The memo comments. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't miss. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Barsky, did you want to make a comment?
I'll go through the memo items, the comments from the reports, and maybe some of your questions will be answered through these. So from the zoning engineering memo, stormwater management is not required for this development. The current standard for dry well should be applied for the relocated dry well, and only stormwater runoff from the roof shall be directed to the dry well. I reviewed this with my civil engineer. It's a little bit of a challenge for us.
Well, excuse me for a second.
Yeah.
I think actually we were talking about traffic and parking. And I assume you're going to have your civil engineer make a presentation?
No, he's in an emergency. He's not able to make it tonight.
Well, I mean, I don't think we're going to finish tonight, but were you planning on having him present?
No.
I'm sorry?
No, he doesn't have any slides if there's specific questions for him, we can ask him at the next meeting.
Well, I mean, it's not up to us to ask him questions. It's up to him to make a presentation, and then based on his presentation, we would respond. So I think given the nature of this application, it's a good idea if he presented. So it's your call, but I think it's important. I mean, we're looking at the circulation through the site dimensionally. You're bringing up issues with regard to drainage. There's access to the adjacent properties. So it's probably not a bad idea to have the civil engineer make a presentation. But again, your decision. Comment or nothing?
My engineer is not here tonight. He had an emergency. He wasn't preparing to present anything. I can prepare him to come up with something to present, but I have a traffic expert here. I have a planner here. I have an attorney here. I'm here myself. I would like to go through the rest of my presentation, and then if the board feels that there needs to be specific testimony from my engineer, then I'm happy to bring him in, and he would have been here
Fair
tonight
enough.
if he
I
didn't
mean,
have a family emergency.
that's your decision. That's fine. I'm okay with that. All right, so, well, I guess we're talking about parking and circulation right now. And then we can, when we're done with that, we can start to talk about, your presentation relative to engineering or the rest of the project.
Steve, I have a
So,
question.
Yes,
A
please.
parking question. I think in Mr. Foot's earlier testimony, he said that there is currently a right of way into the Weichert parking lot.
Yes.
What happened to that?
there is, and that's on one of my further slides.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to get
Yeah,
in
no,
early.
that's okay. So the building, what slide am I on here? Yeah, so there was a question about access to the Weichert parking lot area, and we've intentionally designed the building in a manner to preserve the Weichert access by orienting the drive aisle so that they can access their lot. And we have a lease in place that has been in effect for the last 50 years, and that is to continue moving forward. So, I posted it up here, but it's been in place for almost 50 years, 49 years, and the building was specifically designed to continue to allow access for Weichert.
No, I think that's pretty clear on the drawings. You're right.
And then to answer a question about parking, one of the parking spaces will be reserved for the 3-bedroom affordable unit. 2 parking spaces for the office space, and then the remaining 3 for the market rate residential units.
Okay. And do you plan on submitting any formal agreements for parking for additional cars?
I mean, I can submit formal leases. They're not deeded spaces. So I can certainly submit it before the next meeting. I think really the point of that, and Bank of America, by the way, says when you start paying us is when we'll give you a lease. And at the moment, I lease spaces on my own property. So I have no need to rent out other spaces. So I can't provide a lease without signing a year agreement with them. That creates some challenges. I think really the purpose was just to illustrate there's a lot of parking around. It's basically a large area of parking lots all within the vicinity. But more importantly, what I was focusing on in my testimony is that, I have other properties very similar to this one where there is no parking on site or off site, and there's still a demand to rent commercial space and rent residences. And sometimes that means I need to discount my units. The reality is a tenant with 2 children and 3 cars, they're going to go rent at Avalon Bay. They're not going to rent at my building. And so, if anything, I think it's an improvement from what's there now, which is a whole lot of cars coming in and out. And again, given the location and it being right in the heart of Princeton, really lends itself to, like my other properties down Nassau Street, people who will rent that really don't have a need for a car.
Okay. All right. I have one last question for Mr. Jacquemart. Can you comment on deliveries, both residential and the office? I mean, the office, at least discussion was they would theoretically stop on Nassau Street, which is impractical, especially in front of the building. And deliveries, I guess, to the residential portion, they'd have to drive in to the building and back out onto Harrison Street.
So if you don't mind, Georges, I kind of, this is something we prepared, and I'll speak to it and then you can add to it. So first off, on Nassau Street, about 150 feet up from this building, going towards Kingston, there is parking on, like, actual parking on the street. But to address both deliveries and hauling, and just logistically, I'll talk about it all together. The logistics of tenant move in, move out, deliveries, on other similar properties downtown and busier areas, we've dealt with these kind of overall building logistics through management coordination and communication. So in everyone's lease, we provide a guideline to move in and move out time slots that are in off-peak traffic hours. The U-Haul trucks are limited to 15 feet and smaller so that they meet the clearances of 10 feet to get into this drive aisle. And then a staging area will be provided in front of the building to unload tenant possessions. And then we restrict these times to off-peak hours where it won't affect residents who park on site. And we notify the existing residents of that time window where the access will be blocked. Here specifically for trash, a private hauler with a small truck will be contracted to dispose of trash and recycling, again, on off-peak hours where it won't cause a disruption to tenants who park on site. They'll pull into the drive aisle. You can see here in this exhibit. If you follow the green arrows on the screen, go down the sidewalk, roll the receptacles down the walkway, down the sidewalk, load the truck. And after the hauling is complete, the small truck will use the handicap striping area, which to turn around and come forward out of the site. And that handicap striping area is only used for offloading for handicap purposes. And as I said, we'll do this, contract the hauler to do this in off-peak hours. And actually, the reality on this site is, as opposed to other sites I have, there's a lot more room to do deliveries and hauling than a lot of other downtown sites along Nassau Street and otherwise. But this is the way we anticipated to deal with that. And because we're contracting a private hauler, we can dictate the requirements of pickup times and, size of garbage trucks and all the rest.
Mr. Chairman, while we look at this drawing here, I can answer the question that was raised by Mr. Foot. You can see here the columns are every 2 or 3 spaces, and they are located, and they're kind of, you can see they're double lines, so that the parking spaces themselves are actually 9 feet, for the standard spaces, or 7.5 for the compact spaces. It looks like maybe in one location, to the right of that handicapped sign, maybe the column is a little bit wider than the lines, but it is from a practical point of view, it is 9 feet. And what is actually the most critical look, the columns are located at more or less ideal location, because the car needs the width at the entry to this parking spots. So the columns in this case are really not an issue, in my opinion.
Okay. And I assume then that there are just that one row of columns that are shown in the parking. There's no other columns in there, so they're going to use the wall of the building as a bearing wall to support whatever beams and structure they have.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, just real quick. So all this information then about the deliveries, in some way they would need to, we just would like to have that some way in writing on the plans, or in some way as a condition of approval, just to make sure that all of that information is there and will be adhered to moving further into the future, assuming that this is approved. We just want to make sure that deliveries are made, and especially the garbage truck pickups are in fact going to be done in that parking area as shown, and not. I don't think Mr. Barsky would allow it to happen, but just for the sake of the municipality, that we have some kind of written documentation that this is what the plan is going to be. And the same thing with the assigned parking. Again, some kind of it can be a condition of approval that that just be added to the plans as far as what the assignments are going to be, or that be some kind of written documentation that is on file.
Okay, that's fair enough. And I think this session is being recorded. So when we get to that, if and when we get to that point that we're going to vote on this, that everything that was committed to will be part of the resolution.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, board members, are there any questions of Mr. Jacquemond or Mr. Barsky who just presented?
I'd like to ask another question.
Yes.
Just so I understand it, and it's of Mr. Barsky. So your affordables, you're assigning one space to the 3-bedroom unit, and the other affordable unit is the 2-bedroom, or is the 1-bedroom you're proposing?
It's the 2-bedroom.
2-bedroom. Okay. Fine, thanks. I just wanted to make sure I understood what the mix would be.
Mr. Barsky, are we going to get a presentation of the reconfiguration of the first floor to show the 3-bedroom unit?
Yes, I have it on one of my slides.
Okay. Yep. All right. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I see Mr. Anasike has his electronic hand up.
Okay. Yeah, we still have the screen. If you can take down the screen, we can see everybody.
We're not done with the slides yet. We're not done with the slides yet, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so let's, Mr. Anasike, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yes. Yes. If you could put up that slide again on trash bin removal. So one of the comments I made was with regards to access to the wildcat parking spaces. The two, if you will call it, eastmost parking. Yeah, just stay back on that. Right.
It's a new slide.
Okay.
If you want me, I can comment on them. So
yeah, sure.
So there you can see roughly 5 spaces in that parking lot, A, B, C, D, and E. The ones that are more difficult, the most difficult to get in and out are D and E. So here you can see for space E, that's very close to that building, and that's the way the space is located today. Obviously, as the car enters there, the car will stay at a certain angle that will make it easier to get out. And so you can see how the vehicle E is backing out and kind of backing towards the vehicle A sufficiently there so they can move out in one maneuver. And we show the same for vehicle D, that's in the next slide. And that vehicle D, because it's a little bit closer to that vehicle A, has to exit in 2 maneuvers. So obviously that depends a little bit on the size of the vehicle, the ability of the driver, but it does show that space D can get in 1 maneuver and can get out in 2 maneuvers. So it does still work. And, obviously it's a tight situation, but it is, that's the size of that lot of the Weichert property. That is relatively tight already today.
Oh yeah, today it is tight. You're right, but tomorrow there'll be a building there, which is a real obstacle.
Right.
Right. It's a little bit, and I don't know. There may be a drawing that today there's an island a little bit further south. So you're correct, Chairman. The exit, the opening today is a little bit wider than it will be in the future. In the future, it's going to be more than 20 feet, because the opening is at the location where the compact spaces are. So the opening is probably 22 feet roughly. And I think today it's probably closer to 20, I'm not sure.
So what size of vehicle is used for this template?
I think here for those spaces D and E, we use the vehicle you can see at the bottom, Ford Escape, I think. And you see that in the graphic. So obviously the Weichert people, if they have large vehicles, they put them in A, B, and C. If they have smaller vehicles, they go into space D and E.
Do you know, Mr. Jacquemart, are these Weichert spaces assigned or are they opened?
I don't know the answer to that.
The only reason I ask is if it's someone new every time trying to figure out how to get into a space, it's more difficult than if somebody does it every day.
Yeah, I imagine it's mostly employees, Weichert employees that park there. I don't know. I have never seen a sign that directs visitors to this parking area. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I assume it's mostly employees.
Yeah. Okay. That's purely up to Weichert. Sure. Any other questions? Board members, staff, anyone? Okay, Mr. Tar, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, I think that Mr. Barsky is not done with his slide presentation. So I think he's up to slide 44. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, based on the discussions with the chairman, if there are any of these that are truly engineering in nature, we could skip over them and have Mr. Kamalik speak at the next hearing if that's the chairman's
We'll see how
preference.
things progress and then Mr. Barsky can decide what he wants to do.
Okay.
Okay, well, so I'll go through the comments. While on-site stormwater management is not required for this development, the current standards for dry wells should be applied for the relocated dry well. And only stormwater runoff from the roof shall be directed to the dry well. And was speaking to James Klamalak, my civil engineer, he suggested to add this to the BMP manual as part of regular maintenance to inspect the dry well. Next comment was demonstrate why connections to the municipal stormwater sewer is not provided coming out of that dry well. Number one, it's not required, but more importantly, if I'm not mistaken, it's regulated by DOT and would require DOT permits, which we would really like to avoid. The site plan does not indicate how parking lot runoff is collected or treated. It's preferable that this runoff be treated prior to discharge to the municipal stormwater. And so this is really just only a really small uncovered strip of parking at the northern boundary of the lot line, which is exposed. The roof runoff shall be pre-treated by leaf screens, diverters, roof washers. Okay, we'll do that. A drain is proposed in the area of the outdoor trash enclosure. Applicant should describe how this runoff is to be protected from organic waste spillage. And the same thing that's common practice now to add to a BMP manual as part of regular maintenance and inspections. And the municipality's planning improvements to Harrison Street. So the improvements to the sidewalk along the site should be coordinated with that project. Yes, of course, we'll do that. And the proposed sidewalks along North Harrison and Nassau Street are being widened to 5 feet. Princeton standard detail for sidewalk and driveway aprons should be incorporated into the drawings. Yes, okay. Applicant agrees to do that. The standard municipal sidewalk with 5 feet and is recommended that the sidewalk meet that standard. Okay. Applicant will do that. Additional canopy downlight fixtures should be provided at the ingress egress driveway. Okay, applicant will comply with that. Section T10B-204 requires each bicycle parking space to be accessible without another bicycle needed to move. And I'll show you in the next slide exhibits that we comply with that. Requires all covered bicycle parking facilities to be secured by means of lockable door or object. And again, on the next slide, I'll show an exhibit with bike loops for locking. Advise where bicycle parking signage is to be installed. Again, I'll show it on the upcoming exhibit. And details of proposed bike parking spaces should be provided to confirm compliance. And here's the sheet here with the bike details. I've included the two-sided bicycle parking signage, which is indicated here along Harrison Street, which is required. Also illustrated is the bike storage under the awning to the front door. There's 8 covered bike parking, 8 covered bicycle parking spaces with 6 loops, 6 metal loops for locking. And I've also increased the walkway between the buildings from 4 feet to 5 feet to comply with T10B-204 to permit accessibility without another bicycle needing to move, so people can pass. The reality is there's 2 entrances to the building, and it's a relatively low-use building. There's 10 apartments in it and access from both ways, but we did increase the walkway. And on slide 48, just a closer up version of the increased width of the walkway and the covered bicycle layout. Again, these changes meet the bicycle ordinance requirement as stated on the municipal memo, and the applicant will include these details as part of resolution compliance. We talked about Queenston, we talked about the Weicker access. We talked about tenant move in, move out deliveries, and I'm happy to provide, to Nathan's point, some kind of documentation of how we'll handle that. One of the comments was a booster pump may be required by the fire subcode official. If it's required, we'll supply it, of course. And I talked about disposals of waste here in this turning template of with the small truck of how trash is going to get in and out. For Dan Dobromilski's landscape memo, just we agreed to all the recommendations. Most of the trees on site are in bad shape, dead or invasive species, and we'll follow all his recommendations in his report. One caveat being that there's a recommendation to remove some invasive species behind 350 Nassau Street. It's on another property. I'm not able to take them down, but I'll certainly attempt to coordinate with the neighbors while the tree guy's there to have them removed. And many of the planning memos comments overlap with comments I just previously addressed, so I'll address the outstanding one. The parking area clearance is 10 feet high, so it's enough for a small U-Haul truck and standard size delivery trucks. On one of the existing elevations, I was missing the 2 chimneys on the existing building. Those chimneys are going to remain. There's going to be no change to the existing building whatsoever. There was a question about the first floor elevation facade material, that it wasn't clear on the drawings. It is stucco. There was also a recommendation to install a plaque to recognize the historic nature of the Horner House, and I'm happy to do that, and I can coordinate that with HPC for what exactly it would say. I will provide solar-ready provisions on the flat roof. There was a question if there'll be washers and dryers in every unit, and there will be, including the affordable units. There was a question about transformer on the site, and the electric for the site is on an overhead network, so there's no ground level transformer that's needed. And lastly, we talked about the distribution of parking. So 1 space for the 3-bedroom affordable unit, 2 for office, and 3 for the market rate residences.
Okay, I had one question. You said the exterior material on the first floor will be stucco.
Yes, correct.
I would suggest that under the building, the wall between the apartments and the parking be something more durable than stucco, because you have a 20-foot drive aisle as opposed to a 24. So there's a possibility that people will tap that wall when they try to back out or come in.
I noted. And there were questions in some of the memos about affordable housing bedroom count. And though that's regulated by an outside agency, the DCA, and they have many rules and regulations about those requirements. After reading the memos, we did include a 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom affordable unit. They are both proposed to be located on the ground floor for actual practical and logistical reasons that my planner, Cray Rainkamp, will elaborate on further during his testimony. I'll say from a market perspective that in a walk-up building like this with no elevator, the ground floor units are valued at the same, and in some cases more than the units on the upper floors. That's just from a market perspective, but Craig will elaborate on the actual affordable needs. And these are handicap accessible, not adaptable.
Is it possible to, do you mind if I interrupt here for a second?
Sure.
Is it possible to have one of the market rate units, since these are both ADA compliant, is it possible to have one of the market rate units on the first level, which will be ADA compliant, as opposed to making both affordable units ADA compliant? I mean, I'm sure there are people who don't income qualify for a low and mod unit that might be handicapped, and this is an opportunity to get a unit on the first level. So I think moving one of the affordables upstairs is a valid request. And the only other suggestion, we don't have much detail on the 3-bedroom, but generally the NJHMFA looks for a bath and a half on a 3-bedroom unit as opposed to 1 bathroom. So,
well, I mean, we can certainly explore that, and moving the 2-bedroom upstairs, I'm not totally opposed to, and we can talk about that further. I like to hear Cray Rainkamp's testimony on why he believes that these are actually the right locations for him, but I'm certainly open to discuss that further. And actually, before I'm going to turn over the presentation to him in a moment, just quickly to provide a recap of this application. We came in over a year ago with a fully compliant zoning application. And the proposal, and so there was no variances, there was no reason to come to the zoning board, but the proposal was not well received by HBC and our neighbors. And since that time, we've collaborated with Save Jugtown leadership and made some significant concessions to the scope of the job. There's less units, it's much smaller, and there's some risk here, obviously, that I'm coming with variances as opposed to a compliant application. The new proposed building sits further from the street. It's much smaller, less amount of units, smaller in height, less in stories. We believe this revision is more simplified, and the size, style, and configuration of the fenestrations is better related to the historic building and neighborhood. And though this revision is more compatible and smaller in scale, again, it comes with the variances that we discussed. But we believe this prominent location of the site, along with its historical context, is deserving of being preserved. And we've worked closely with our neighbors and HBC to ensure that we bring forward a proposal that is well received by our neighbors in the community. And as a local Princetonian myself, I felt moved to make considerable concessions to the project and take on risk of including variances to my application for really the cause of neighborhood cooperation and ultimately a version of essentially grassroots planning. And so thank you for your time and consideration. I'll pass along to our planner,
Okay,
Craig
one
Rankamp.
second, please. Mr. Floyd, do you have a question?
You're muted, Michael.
Yeah, a comment I wanted to get in, and it's related to your last exchange, Mr. Barsky, with the chairman regarding handicap accessible and what units get it. I do have a concern if it's, as you propose, both affordable units being handicap accessible. I don't know. I, for one, I've in my youth, looked at apartments that were handicap accessible when I didn't need it and I didn't want the apartment. It's hard for me to accept both the affordables being placed in that. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, thank you, Michael. Yeah, I guess who else is going to present this evening? Mr. Tar, Mr. Barsky?
We have Craig Rayenkamp, the planner, was going to wrap up with the planning testimony.
Is that the final witness?
Marina is here, and of course, we want you to hear from our friends at Save Jugtown who are on our team and prepared to give you remarks immediately following Mr. Rayenkamp's presentation.
Mr. Chair, how late does the board want to go that may?
Well, I would see, unless I would think we'd have to, after we finish the testimony, and if there are questions from the board, and then we have public comment, and then we go back. I would think 11 o'clock is really it, unless.
So that presents Ms. Casey and I are thinking the same thing. We're not going to finish tonight.
No.
Should we? I want to give if there's engineering issues that are germane to the board, or we want to see some documents, we could present them and come back next month to finish up.
It's your decision what you want to present. You've seen the memos and heard the questions, and I don't want to make a determination on, who you bring before us, but again, it's typical, quite frankly, to have an engineer and an architect testify. And, it's your decision.
Because the planner really likes to hear all the other testimony before he gives his opinion, I just don't think it's going to help us any to go ahead with Cray without getting Jim Kamalik before you next month and getting some of that documentation to you. Daniel's kicking me under the table here, but
If you want to take a minute and discuss this with your client, please do.
Mr. Tar, might I suggest we take 5 minutes to talk about the affordable unit locations and deal with that tonight, and I'll save the real planning testimony for next time.
Sure. That might be. It is interesting to the board members. Mr. Barsky's indicated a great deal of flexibility. Perhaps we could just talk about that issue of whether the two affordables be on the first floor or one should be upstairs, if the board's so interested in that topic.
Okay.
And Mr. Tar, since you have some of your I'll just say supporting testimony, do you want them to be able to speak tonight so that they don't need to come back?
They love coming back. We're all friends and on the same team.
Okay.
So I'm going to give a brief introduction of Craig Rayenkamp's credentials, but next time I'll go into it in more detail. But he's been a professional planner in New Jersey for 31 years. He has a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Pennsylvania and a master's degree from Georgetown and additional educational experience at University of Pennsylvania and Princeton University. It interested me that he's a member of the American Planning Association New Jersey chapter, where he's gotten the Distinguished Service Award, and it heads the Housing Committee of the American Planning Association for New Jersey and has for many years. He's a member of the New Jersey Builders Association Affordable Housing Task Force. He's made presentations nationwide and has been deemed an expert witness by courts and innumerable planning and zoning boards. And he served as a court-appointed special master for affordable housing in New Jersey.
Is
He's
he
been
a
a key-
licensed professional planner in New Jersey?
Has been for 31 years.
Thank
And
you.
Cray, if everything that I've said is true, will you please so indicate?
Yes. And license is current.
Thank you.
So Cray, we're just going to talk about the issue of what to do on the first floor and what our thinking has been. And you are an expert and we'd like to hear from you.
I just wanted to explain why we've done what we've done and give you some more facts and background behind it as you're working out what you would like to see ultimately with the project. One of the things that we have to realize about the population that we serve with the price restricted units is that they have certain demographic characteristics. The principal one is that well over 70% of the households are single parent families. There's a logic behind that. Obviously, if you have two incomes, you're far less likely to qualify. So we know, and the units are allocated by family size. So we know a 3-bedroom unit is always going to generate two children. We don't know the ages, but the units will be allocated so that there are two kids that are going to be in that 3-bedroom unit, which means hikes, bikes, prams, strollers, all of that accoutrement is going to be part of that unit. And because this is a walk-up building, there's no elevator. I think it's very important that 3-bedroom unit be on the ground floor. I think it's meeting the demographics that we can expect realistically is going to occur in that unit. 2-bedroom units can have a child, but sometimes they don't. And this gets into the disabled and caregiver pairings, which is the second largest household formation type in the restricted units. And that can be the mother-daughter configuration that we see with an elderly mother and an adult daughter, or a married couple with one of them disabled with one income earner. And because that's a disabled population, obviously being on the ground floor in a walk-up building makes sense. So it was my recommendation that for the demographic reasons and who we're serving with these price restricted units, it made sense to put them on the ground floor. As Daniel said earlier, the ground floor units are actually valuable. There are lots of seniors. I'm one who would avoid stairs, and having that ground floor as a market rate unit is viable as well. So it's not that we're reluctant to say move the 2-bedroom up if that's where you want to go. We just recognize that means that there's a population in the restricted market that we're trying to serve that would not be serviced by these units because of the stairs. So that was the logic behind our choices, just so you understand it as you're considering how you would like to move forward.
Okay. I understand that. I understand your logic relative to the 3-bedroom unit, and I agree with that, although the unit is very tight, at least what I can see in this very small drawing. But the 2-bedroom unit is going to have 3 windows in it. One's going to it'd be right on the drive aisle. The other is going to look directly over the trash, and the other is going to be separated from the adjacent building by 5 feet with a 4 or 5 foot walkway in front of it. So I don't think that's really an ideal unit. And, whether it's an affordable unit or a market rate unit, it's not an ideal unit. And I still feel strongly about having only one affordable unit on the first floor and a fully accessible or fully adaptable unit capable of housing a person with disabilities on the first floor.
As Daniel's already said, he's willing to do that. If I convince you to keep the 3-bedroom unit on the ground floor, I'm happy. That's the real key.
Yeah, but again, keep in mind that I think, again, it's hard to tell with a drawing this small, but I think a 3-bedroom unit would require a bath and a half. And when you look at that, it's, again, very hard to tell. When you look at what appears to be the kitchen, which is a row of cabinets opposite the bedrooms, that's a very, very small living room for potentially 4 to 5 people.
The bath and a half standard that you're thinking about, Mr. Chairman, is an HMFA standard for projects that take state money. It is not a requirement for inclusionary housing in private developments.
Okay. It's from a practical standpoint, it makes sense, but your decision. But again, like I said, I think that living room is very small, you know, for a family.
Mr. Chairman, I also want to bring up, because you know, just piggybacking off of what you just said, I do have a concern about the size of that 3-bedroom, and whether it is meeting, not the HMFA requirements, but the UHAC requirements, regarding
But if I
unit
may
size.
respond, we are a third round project, which is exempt from the current UHAC regulations as a third round project. And in the third round, we would not be held to the minimum bedroom size requirements that are in the fourth round regulations. If on the other hand, you said this was a fourth round regulation, then we wouldn't need a 3-bedroom unit. Because there's the small project exemption. So it's either a 3-bedroom unit under the third round rules with smaller bedroom sizes, or it's a fourth round project, in which case we don't need a 3-bedroom unit.
And
You
all
can
of
go
this
either way.
is, all of this is not, it's a zoning issue. I've just got to interject the fact that this is dealt with by other agencies than the zoning board.
So that's fair, Mr. Tar, except, you know, we still want to make sure that we are, you know, we don't want this to come back and bite us. That's why we are asking about it at this
We have to make sure it complies with the law. That's a given.
Yep.
We will ensure compliance.
Right. Absolutely.
But we will, I mean, we'll have to, on our side, group together and just make sure that fourth or third round, that question will need to get addressed and have that before.
Well, it's AHO2,
Let's do that
and
offline.
AHO2 was a third round item. So we'll come back to that. And we now have plenty of time to make sure that we can present to the board facts that we both agree upon.
Absolutely.
The importance to end the discussion tonight, you've heard my logic. The chairman has indicated we'll move our 2-bedroom up, and we'll agree, we'll do that, and we'll be ready to present that next time.
Okay, well, that was
Mr. Nkep, I just have one question. So it's your testimony then that both affordable units do not need to be handicap accessible or adaptable? Because I'm assuming if units on the other than the ground floor in this building, it can't be accessible or handicap adaptable.
Both ground floor units both have to be adaptable. And adaptable means that the floor area is there to convert a unit to use by someone in a wheelchair. There are certain.
Okay, but if they can't get up there, Steve, then there's no elevator.
I'm talking about the first floor units only.
Ground floor.
Jacone, if I can answer the question.
Yes,
I'd
like that.
There's not a specific requirement for the affordable units to both be on the ground floor and be accessible.
Right.
We've met the affordable housing accessibility requirements with the single unit. So we are able to move one of them up, and it would not be accessible, and that's okay under the affordable housing requirements.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we've taken advantage of Craig's expertise here. We're going to come back with drawings. I wonder if we could take just a few moments to make a list of those things which we wanted to see in detail. So, for example, staff wanted to see the hard copies of the proposals to rent spaces from adjacent neighbors, things of that sort. Could we just hear from board members in particular things which they hadn't heard?
Well, I think I'd like to see, as an architect, I'd like to see a little more detail of this 3-bedroom unit, which I think is small.
Okay. And again, going to the as far as to confirm that the size is acceptable under the statutes, under the UHAC regulations.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Anything with respect to the landscaping? I think we had a pretty clear consensus with Mr. Dobromelski's recommendations.
Well,
There is,
with regard to landscaping, I don't think we discussed it in detail, but you've taken out all the screening to the adjacent building. And you put in a picket fence, which is open. So approaching this, driving up Harrison Street, you're going to be looking directly at the parking. Right now, it's a very nice landscape buffer, and that's going to disappear.
well, it's a fence with some stuff, ivy growing on it, as you see in
That's
the
a
picture.
fence. On your property, on the current 344
Right.
Nassau property, is a dense planting screen. And all that's coming out, and a picket fence, which is opened, is going to be separating the
Okay,
two
so it's
properties.
very helpful to the applicant to hear that a picket fence is certainly something that you're concerned about. They ought to come next month with a replacement fence, a different type of fence.
Well, something, I personally, I'd like to see landscaping, but it's your decision.
Well, there's a driveway on the other side. You heard the testimony. There's macadam on either side. We'll ask the landscape folks if there's something that could grow in that.
Well, we can discuss this, but then again, too, you're putting the parking right on the property line.
Understand.
So, I mean, you're not allowing for landscaping.
Right. Traffic we've dealt with, the parking we've dealt with. There's no additional drawings or information that the board members envision seeing there.
Dr. just one question. Depending on where that 3-bedroom unit goes, are there exterior changes to the building that are required for it to go on the ground floor or, on the second floor?
I'm going to ask Marina to just speak up. She's not been sworn.
Chris, the answer is no. There's
Okay.
no exterior changes.
Okay. So.
Okay.
I have a question. Before, I don't know if you're planning to come back with the affordable unit moved, to a different floor, but is that something that the board should weigh in on right now before you go and make those changes? Or
I think it's a good idea.
yeah, because I actually I felt that there's some valid reasons to keep it as is with the 2 units at the lowest level. But I don't know how other members feel.
Bernice, I don't want to speak for staff, but my understanding is that they also wanted an opportunity to confer about that issue internally.
Okay.
But I don't know if Nathan or Derek, does that make sense? Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, I think we want to. Oh, sorry, Derek.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
No, I was just going to say that yeah, that's correct, Karen. That we want to confirm with the applicant what the requirement is, just to make sure that all of our municipal requirements and that these units would be accountable towards our obligations. So I think we do want to confer on that internally and then discuss with the applicant as well to make sure that those requirements are being met. And Derek, if you add anything else, sorry to interrupt.
No, you stole my thunder. Thank you.
So there are arguments both ways, all of which are logical and helpful. And I think all we want to do in the next couple of weeks is to make sure that each of them technically complies and then work with you to choose. It was like working with HPC on the color of the building. There'll be a discussion.
Mr. Tar, one question I don't think Mr. Barsky addressed. There were some other suggestions in the HPC memo, and there were a lot of suggestions in the Environmental Commission memo. Is that something, or let me rephrase that, should we assume if they haven't been addressed by Mr. Barsky that he doesn't want to comply with those recommendations, or he just in great shape?
He wants to please the board, so I think we're going to go back through the memos, and we're going to the Environmental Commission memo went a bit beyond.
And I think Mr. Lesko had a number of comments too.
That's right. Yeah, I was just looking it up. Yeah, I think you got to address his memo too.
Yes,
The-
he's got a lot of comments.
The planning memo, the most
Yeah,
recent.
but a lot of the comments overlap with the other. Most of them overlap with comments
Okay.
I already addressed from other people's, and then I added on this section the remaining comments that didn't overlap to talk about each one individually. But I'm happy to go through it again if we need to at the next meeting.
Well, I think we might have Mr. Lesko go through his memo so we can make sure we've got everything covered.
Yep. So that was a joint memo between with Mr. Lesko and myself. I think that Mr. Barsky did address most of those. As he mentioned, they were there were a lot of overlaps with the other memos. However, we will also take a look at on our side if anything was not addressed and make sure that Mr. Barsky and Mr. Tar are aware of that and that they should be prepared to address any additional issues from that memo.
That would be very helpful. We'd appreciate
Fair
that.
enough. No problem at all with that.
I have a question about this screen. Can I ask it? A minute.
Go ahead.
Mr. Barsky, what does it mean when you say you will provide solar-ready provisions for a flat roof? What
It means that the panel is sized appropriately to add the right size breakers and the right size conduit run up to the roof so that if I wanted to add solar panels in the future, I wouldn't have to be doing any demolition, ripping out of drywall, upgrading panels. So I could just hire the solar panel company, but the basic infrastructure is done for them to pull all their roughs through.
Okay, thank you.
And it is something I will explore on the site. At the moment, I can at least get it ready for that.
Thank you.
This has been very helpful. We'll pull together some additional information and respond to those memos. The one practical thing I heard that I wanted just to get it on the record. Mr. Ranoseca said that you can't get into the commercial building from the rear.
Right.
And then you have to come in from Nassau Street side. Daniel, is that correct?
I think he said from a wheelchair standpoint.
No. He said there's no access to the back of the commercial building.
That's what I heard too. I
is
have
what-
the same question you have, Chris.
So
Yeah, there's two rear entrances and they are still accessible off of this walkway. So there's actually two entrances off of Nassau Street and two entrances in the rear. And again, this building's to remain totally untouched and preserved. So those rear accesses will still be available.
So the
By
concern
the
about
way,
delivery and so forth, the delivery there would be the same as to the apartments through the parking lot, through the.
I would imagine so, but I even see a lot of times drivers pull up, they don't realize there's a parking lot in the back currently, and there's spots right up the street. They park there, they run over the package, and then they leave. So I've seen it both ways. They don't stop in the middle of Nassau Street, they pull into an actual parking spot. So
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
If they don't stop on Nassau Street in front of the building, that's the only building on Nassau Street they don't stop in front of.
That's true too.
I think even FedEx, who has no taste or style, will go to a parking space across the street before they'll put a truck in front of that intersection.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you thought we could run till 11. I've got about 5 off, so I think we used up the time as best we could. It's been very helpful to hear about anything else that you'd like to see as we come back next month.
I mean, we won't know until you come back and finish your presentation, but
for sure.
To the extent we know now, we've given you the information.
That's correct, and we appreciate it.
Board members, do you have anything you'd like to add? Take the screen down, please. Board members, do you have anything you want to add and give guidance to the applicant before we close tonight?
Steve, 2 questions, and then I'll of course let board members raise their questions. One, Do we have a date certain in terms of the date this is being carried to? Is it
The
February 4th,
11th.
11th? Okay.
The February meeting is on the 11th,
We have two.
We have two.
11th and the
and we have one on the 25th, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And my second question is, I don't know if there's anybody in the public who wants to comment tonight or will be unable to come to the February 11th meeting. So I don't know what your thought is on that. It is almost 11, but if there's anybody who want to make a brief comment, do you want to
Claudia, is there
entertain
anybody
that?
indicated there that they may want to speak?
I can't, I'm looking at,
There are no hands.
okay,
All right.
okay.
We asked.
Right, so for the benefit of people who are watching at home, this meeting is carried to February 11th. The hearing will continue. The applicant will not be obligated to send out any further noticing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Good night.
No.
Good night.